Chapter 540. In the same hall as before, Yang Kai sat at the head of the table and waited quietly. All the representatives and leaders of the various forces in the mansion continued to arrive. After a while, everyone had arrived. Han Shaoqi informed Yang Kai before finding a place to sit down. Yang Kai finally recovered from his contemplation and raised his head to look at the crowd. Sweeping his gaze across the crowd, familiar faces entered his eyes one after another. Dong family's Dong Qing Han, Purple Fern Valley's Fan Hong and Luo Xiaoman, Reflecting Moon Sect's Chen Shuishu and Su Xiaoyu, Pure Heart Palace's Wufang, Soaring Feather Pavilion's Chu Jingshan, 10,000 Flower Palace's 4 young girls, the 5 seniors of the Duan Mu family, Blood Battle Gang's Hu Jiao Air and Hu Mei Air, Storm Hall's Fang Ziki, Ghost King Valley's Leng Shan and Chen Yi, Tianyuan City's Lu Fei Xing, 11 forces. 11 forces. With the exception of High Heaven Pavilion, all the forces had arrived. Not only that, but Medicine King's Valley's Qin Zhe Treasure Instrument Sects Wu Yen and Tao Yang had also arrived, and all the blood warriors had gathered here. This lineup was unprecedentedly luxurious and powerful. However, it was precisely because Yang Kai had summoned everyone here that everyone realized the seriousness of the situation. Even if he had summoned people before, it was impossible for him to summon people from Medicine King's Valley and Treasure Instrument Sect. They couldn't help feeling that something was wrong and silently waited for Yang Kai to speak. "Junior brother Yang, if you have something to say, just say it quickly, I'm waiting to perform alchemy," Qin Zhe impatiently shouted. During this time he had been studying the alchemic way with Xia Ning Chang, and the alchemy skills of the people from Medicine King's Valley had greatly improved. Qin Zhe spent almost every day in the pill room, wishing he could live here for the rest of his life and never return to Medicine King's Valley again. Compared to Medicine King's Valley, this was the holy land in the hearts of all alchemists. Yang Kai stood up and smiled. Many people have seen the situation just now and must be wondering why Chiu Yimeng and Stars Hua suddenly left. Everyone nodded in unison. Yang Kai continued, "It's not convenient for me to tell you the specific reason, but I can tell you one thing." Everyone suddenly held their breaths. "There's going to be trouble in the manor, and it's going to be a lot of trouble," Yang Kai said in a low voice, his expression turning serious. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they burst into laughter. Fatty Dong said, "Ever since I came to your residence, I haven't had much free time." "Which incident wasn't troublesome?" Yes. Zhuofang also nodded. "But no matter how many troubles there are, we've all worked together to get through it. Tell me, what kind of trouble is it this time?" Everyone's expression was relaxed, and there was no sign of nervousness. Clearly they did not realize the seriousness of the problem. "Something that could endanger your life, or even the rise and fall of your family or sect?" Yang Kai glanced at the crowd. "Can you still laugh?" The noise came to an abrupt end as everyone looked at Yang Kai in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. "I'm not exaggerating. Maybe the situation isn't as bad as I said, but it's not that far off." "That can't be right?" Chu Jingshan shook his head repeatedly. "How could this be? We didn't do anything wrong, we just came here to help you participate in the inheritance war. How could our lives or even the rise and fall of our sects be threatened?" "Just because you're helping me." Yang Kai looked at the crowd apologetically. "The problem lies with me." Han Shaoqi suddenly interjected, "Is it related to your breakthrough to the immortal ascension boundary some time ago?" Everyone couldn't help shivering, suddenly remembering the terrifying demonic aura and the scene of 8 above immortal ascension boundary masters acting together. Even now they still felt a lingering fear. "That can't be considered the entire reason, but at the very least it's related." Yang Kai nodded and said, "It's very likely that because of this, I will become an enemy of the central capital's 8 great families." The audience was in an uproar. Becoming an enemy of the central capital's 8 great families was something no one had ever dared to imagine. The world's great forces participated in the inheritance war in order to establish a good relationship with the 8 great families. Gathering in Yang Kai's mansion was not for this purpose, but they had never thought that one day they would have to confront the 8 great families. It was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. Everyone's eyes trembled as they stared at Yang Kai, seemingly trying to see if he was joking. Unfortunately, they were disappointed as Yang Kai's expression was extremely serious. So Chiu Yimeng and Hua Stars were taken away. Yang Kai took a deep breath. "Today I called all of you here for no other reason than to tell you that during this time, I thank all of you for your help. If fate wills it, we will meet again." "Yang Kai, what do you mean?" Hu Jiao Air suddenly stood up, her charming face filled with anger. "Are you trying to drive us away?" Yang Kai nodded and quickly said, Yes, continuing to stay here is not good for you. You bastard. Hu Jiao ground her teeth and glared at him, laughing sarcastically. What kind of person do you think I am? At your beck and call, at your beck and call? It was you who insisted on pulling us sisters into the house, and now you want to drive us away. Why should I listen to you? Elder sister. Hu Mei looked anxious and quickly pulled on her sister's sleeve. Yang Kai is just being kind. I'm not blind. Hu Jiao muttered, glaring at Yang Kai with hatred, but I just can't get used to seeing him act so arbitrarily. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. I thought it was something serious. Qin Zhe curled his lips in disdain. So it's just this. Junior brother Yang, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. What kind of birds are the 8 great families? Do they dare hurt my Medicine King's Valley's people? Even if you lent them several guts, they wouldn't dare. Saying so, he valiantly left, not putting the 8 great families in his eyes at all. Everyone laughed involuntarily. Qin Zhe was indeed qualified to say so. Although Medicine King's Valley was only a second-class sect, because of its special characteristics, the 8 great families wouldn't act against them. Yang Kai, how serious is the situation? Han Shaoqi asked calmly. Yang Kai shook his head. I can't say for sure. If I say I will become an enemy of the 8 great families, it is very likely. For some reason the 8 great families want me to submit, but I refuse, so there is a contradiction. But this matter is really hard to say, so it's best if you leave as soon as possible and don't get involved with me. Pausing for a moment, he continued, the same goes for the blood warriors. Tu Feng and the other elders' expressions became solemn as they exchanged glances and chuckled. Tang Yuxian said, Little Lord, I'll say something disrespectful, but don't look down on us. Since we have decided to follow you, we will live and die together, we will never shrink back. Little Lord, have you forgotten that the blood warriors are synonymous with loyalty? Even if we die, we won't leave. Ingjiu said coolly. We pledge our lives to follow Little Lord. Everyone roared in unison. Since that's the case, I won't try to dissuade you. Saying too much would be an insult to all of you. Yang Kai nodded firmly. If the blood warriors don't want to leave, naturally I won't either. Dong Qinghan smiled. You're my cousin, how could a cousin not care about his own? Yang Kai, you've shown us kindness, so when you're in trouble we won't leave. Han Shaoqi looked towards Yang Kai with some distress. She also knew how difficult it was for Yang Kai to make such a decision. Kindness must be repaid with kindness, hatred must be avenged, my pure heart palace will not leave. Zuofang quickly said. Without even mentioning that Yang Kai had saved his life in the isolated world, some time ago, Xianing Chang had refined a heaven-mending pill for Zuofang's brother Li Xan Yuan to repair his damaged dantian. Zuofang was extremely grateful to Yang Kai, so how could he leave at this time? After coming to this house, my strength has improved so quickly. Every day there is an endless supply of pills and artifacts. In any case, I'm reluctant to leave. Fang Ziki grinned meaningfully. Useless. Hu Jiao looked at him contemptuously. I'm telling the truth. Fang Ziki shrugged his shoulders. Yang Kai, as long as you don't drive us away, we won't leave. The cultivator in the house echoed one by one, stretching their necks and shouting. Yang Kai smiled as he swept his eyes over the crowd. He could feel that these people were speaking from the bottom of their hearts, without the slightest bit of falsehood. It was just that they were still holding on to some kind of fluke mentality and hadn't really realized the seriousness of the problem. But after saying so much, Yang Kai couldn't say anything more. He couldn't really drive out everyone here, that would be too cruel. So, he could only say, many thanks for your kindness, but I will say what I want to say today. I will not stop you from making your own decisions. If one day you feel that it is no longer appropriate for you to stay, you can leave at any time. A Yang Kai will not criticize you. Good enough, don't say any more, it will only hurt our feelings. Dong Qinghan mediated, and the atmosphere suddenly became harmonious. Everyone began asking Yang Kai questions. Since this matter was related to everyone's interests, Yang Kai couldn't conceal anything and simply conveyed the intentions of Yang Zhen and the others, not mentioning a single word about the myriad drug liquid. After listening, everyone's brow furrowed, only now understanding how awkward Yang Kai's situation was. Because he cultivated a demonic secret art, took in evil sect disciples, and had the same origin as the demon lord, the 8 great families were suspicious of him. The situation was indeed not optimistic. In the inheritance war, another change occurred. Originally Yang Kai's allies, the Qiu family's Qiu Yimeng was recalled to the central capital, while the Hua family's Huixing was personally captured by the Hua family patriarch and imprisoned. Before this, the Xiang family Xiang Tianshao also left Yang Kai's house. At the same time, news of Yang Kai colluding with evil demons spread throughout War City. Gathered in his house were the remnants of the evil sect's High Heaven Pavilion and the disciples of the evil sect's Ghost King Valley, who cultivated a demonic secret art that nearly became the demon race, who broke through to the Immortal Ascension boundary and caused chaos in War City, contradicting the 8 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters, brutally killing 2 of the heirs of first-class families, and even coming from the same sect as the Demon Lord. All kinds of news spread, causing people to imagine what was going on. Suddenly, everyone felt that this Yang Kai really had a problem. There were even rumors that the Yang family wanted to ban Yang Kai from participating in the inheritance war and compete for the position of the next patriarch. The entire War City instantly became turbulent. The course of the inheritance war was also full of twists and turns, making it difficult to unravel. Kai Yang had been in the lead twice, but each time for various reasons he was unable to win in one fell swoop. It was inevitable that some people would feel pity for him, but at the same time, they would also take pleasure in his misfortune. Fortunately, he didn't win, otherwise if an evil demon became the patriarch of the Yang family in the future, what kind of scandal would that be? Chapter 541. Public opinion spread like a tide, and within half a day, this news had spread throughout War City and the central capital. Everyone was talking about it, and those who had high expectations for Yang Kai also inadvertently changed their attitudes. Qiu Yimeng and Stars Hua, who were forced to leave, also became the protagonists of public opinion. It was rumored that because these 2 young lords and young ladies saw the evil nature of Yang Kai, they couldn't persuade him otherwise and left Yang Kai. If not for this, it would have been impossible for them to leave Yang Kai's mansion. When the news came out, the whole city was in an uproar. Qiu Yimeng and Stars Hua's sacrifice for so long was not worth it, and Yang Kai's actions and attitude were deeply disgusted. Yang Wei Mansion. Since Yang Kai broke through to the Immortal Ascension boundary, Yang Wei's mansion had not taken any action. All the cultivators of the various forces were diligently cultivating, not caring about the inheritance war at all. Because even Yang Wei didn't have the confidence to win, what could these cultivators do? It was more important to improve their strength as soon as possible, and after the end of the inheritance war they would leave War City. In the quiet mansion, not a single sound could be heard. Suddenly the sound of hurried footsteps broke the silence. The sound of footsteps came from afar and quickly arrived in front of Yang Wei's room. The person didn't even knock on the door and directly rushed in and shouted, "Eldest young master, eldest young master." Yang Wei, who was meditating, slowly opened his eyes and looked at Meng Shanyi, who was both shocked and excited, his straight brow rising as he quickly said, "Shanyi, how many times have I told you not to be so flustered when something happens? You're always like this." Saying so, he slowly shook his head, a helpless look on his face. "First young lord, this time it's different." Meng Shanyi's face was flushed red as if he had encountered a great event, but if one looked carefully, there was a trace of sadness on his brow and his expression was complicated. What happened? Yang Wei had been in retreat these days, not caring about the outside world, so he really didn't know about the public opinion in the city. Meng Shanyi said, "Yang Kai is probably going to be eliminated." Yang Wei's expression became cold as he asked, "Where did you hear this gossip?" "It's not gossip." Meng Shanyi shook his head, his expression solemn as he briefly recounted what had happened in the city that day. Hearing this, Yang Wei's expression became strange. Qiu Yimeng and Hua Xing's departure from Yang Kai's mansion was beyond his expectations. On top of that, the public opinion in War City was extremely fierce. Obviously, someone was adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. As for who this person was, there was no need to guess. Besides the 8 great families, no one else had the means to influence public opinion. He hadn't expected that his 9th brother, whose methods reached the heavens, would actually attract such attention from the 8 great families. Vaguely, he felt that something was not right. Even if 9th brother had the potential to become a demon lord, with the status of the 8 great families, it was impossible for them to openly make things difficult for a junior. Why was that so? What was the deeper meaning behind this? Furthermore, he had swayed the tide of public opinion first, causing OL 9th to fall into a passive situation in terms of righteousness. Then, Yang Wei seemed to have thought of something extraordinary and couldn't help but frown. "First young lord, there's one more thing I need to tell you." Meng Shanyi frowned and said hesitantly, "What is it?" "The Meng family sent a letter, asking us to cooperate with second young lord, to defeat Yang Kai." When Meng Shanyi said this, his expression was extremely bitter. A letter from the Meng family? Yang Wei raised his brow. What about my Yang family? The messenger said, the Yang family will not intervene in this matter, so we can act boldly. He had also received this letter while in retreat and hurriedly inquired about it in War City. After understanding the current situation, he had come to inform Yang Wei. Cooperate with second young lord, ha. Yang Wei suddenly laughed. Even if all the people in our two mansions were gathered together, I'm afraid we still wouldn't be ninth brother's opponent, right? Is there some other arrangement? Meng Shanyi smiled bitterly. First young lord's insight is as clear as day. The messenger said that we don't need to worry, all we need to do is show up and express our stance. As for the rest, second young lord will handle it properly. Yang Wei fell silent, a sharp light flashing across his eyes. First young lord. Meng Shanyi pursed his lips. Although this time it was my Meng family who sent the message, it seems that your Yang family has also acquiesced. Yang Wei nodded gently. If not for the Yang family's acquiescence, how could the Meng family act like this? They didn't have the guts to do so. Second young lord has lost all fighting spirit since that day, and the number of people in his mansion has also shrunk significantly. He is no match for the little lord. Meng Shanyi's expression became gloomy, but listening to the messenger's tone, second young lord is now fully confident he can swallow up Yang Kai's mansion. How could he have such confidence? Reinforcements, the 8 great families' reinforcements. Yang Wei's words broke the mystery. Meng Shanyi's face was filled with horror, Yang Wei speaking out the guess in his heart, causing his expression to become bitter. First young lord. By doing this, does it mean that they have already designated second young lord as the next patriarch of the Yang family? Reinforcements had not come to the first young lord's mansion, but instead to Yang Zhao's. The Yang family obviously hoped that Yang Zhao could inherit the position of patriarch, so they had gathered reinforcements to him so that he could defeat Yang Kai and win the inheritance war. Yang Wei smiled and nodded gently. Let's not talk about ninth brother for now. According to the current situation, the Yang family really does hope so. First young lord, aren't you disheartened at all? Meng Shanyi suddenly asked. Up until now, the winner of the inheritance war was Yang Kai, but the one who had suffered the most was undoubtedly Yang Zhao. How could such a person be suitable to inherit the Yang family's patriarch's position? In terms of temperament, Yang Wei was undoubtedly more suitable. Why did reinforcements go to Yang Zhao's mansion? Yang Wei smiled and shook his head. Why should I be disheartened? In fact, I don't want to be the patriarch of the Yang family. I think ninth brother also has the same intention. How could that be? Meng Shanyi was stunned. Yang Kai's performance in the inheritance war could be said to be extremely strong, vowing to win. Ninth brother and I both hope to reach the peak of the martial Tao. Those who pursue their own achievements generally don't want to be the patriarch. The patriarch of the Yang family, although it seems to have infinite glory, in fact, it's filled with trivial matters. After reaching that point, how could one have time to cultivate? As far as I know, the biggest reason ninth brother participated in the inheritance war was to restore the name of his sect, High Heaven Pavilion. He seems to have reached an agreement with the patriarch that as long as he wins, High Heaven Pavilion's evil sect title will be removed and its former reputation restored. Just for this? Meng Shanyi was dumbfounded. No matter how he thought about it, there was actually someone in this world who wasn't interested in power. That's right. Yang Wei nodded. I participated in the inheritance war because of the family's rules, but also because I wanted to hone myself. The position of patriarch isn't very important to me. Meng Shanyi remained silent. From this point of view, the family choosing to support second brother is a wise decision. Although second brother's mentality has fluctuated greatly, compared to others, there is no doubt that he is more suitable to pursue power and sit on the patriarch's seat. Yang Wei smiled, not showing the slightest care. Are you disappointed that your efforts so far have not been rewarded? Yang Wei glanced over at the silent Meng Shanyi. Meng Shanyi shook his head gently. Being able to hear First Young Lord's thoughts is already an honor. Since First Young Lord doesn't want to be patriarch, Shanyi must change his mentality. After a pause he asked, then should we cooperate with Second Young Lord? Yang Wei smiled. Since the Meng family sent a message, the 8 great families joining forces and the Yang family acquiescing, how can I refuse? You go and show your face, that's enough. From now on, this is no longer the inheritance war. It could be said that from the moment Yang Kai broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, the inheritance war should have come to an end. Now, with the inheritance war as the stage, The 8 great families would carry out some secret schemes. I understand. Meng Shanyi nodded slightly, turned around and prepared to go to Yang Zhao's house to contact his people. After Meng Shanyi left, Yang Wei's expression became solemn. After thinking about it for a long time, he still couldn't figure out why his 9th brother was targeted to such an extent. In his heart he couldn't help feeling sad for him. At the same time in Yang Zhao's house, batch after batch of masters quickly gathered. These people had never shown up in the inheritance war before, but today, as if they had all agreed beforehand, they had all arrived. When the cultivator of Yang Zhao's forces saw these people, all of them were stunned. They found that many of these people were immortal ascension boundary 9th stage masters, with 7th or 8th stage masters abound. There were a total of 7 groups of people, each of them with a luxurious lineup. Those with good eyesight were able to see where these 7 groups of people came from. These people were all from the central capital's 8 great families. Except for the Yang family who hadn't sent anyone, the other 7 families had all sent people. Among the 7 groups of people, a man and a woman glanced at each other and saw the helplessness and pain in each other's eyes. After a while, the man slowly walked over to the woman and nodded to her. The two of them found a secluded corner and looked at the scene of experts gathering together with a helpless expression. Of these 2 people, one was Stars and the other was Chiu Yimeng. In the morning, the 2 of them had left War City and returned in the evening. In just one day, the 2 of them had been forced to change from Yang Kai's allies to Yang Zhao's. The speed at which their identities changed was extremely ironic. What conditions did your father give you? Stars turned to look at Chiu Yimeng and asked softly. In the future, as a daughter, I will inherit the Chiu family. Chiu Yimeng took a deep breath. Congratulations, isn't this what you've always dreamed of? Stars smiled. Yes. Chiu Yimeng brushed her hair back behind her ear, her beautiful eyes filled with confusion as she asked, "What about you?" Old man said that if I didn't come, he would expel me from the Hua family and never let me set foot in the Hua family again. Old man is serious, but this young master can't afford it. Stars smiled helplessly. It looks like we've all compromised. N. Chapter 542. Of the 7 families' reinforcements, the Chiu family was led by Chiu Yimeng while the Hua family was led by Stars. The Kang family's Kang Zhan and the Gao family's Gao Rangfeng were also present. Even the central capital's first young lord, Lu Qingyao, was here, leading a group of masters from the Lu family, standing silently in a corner, not communicating with anyone. Looking at this spectacular scene, Stars couldn't help curling his lips. Ridiculous. It's quite ridiculous. Chiu Yimeng gently nodded. The 7 families are targeting Yang Kai, but they still sent their younger generation to lead them. Obviously, they want to use the stage of the Yang family inheritance war to fool the world. Hua Xingchen shrugged his shoulders. There's nothing that can be done about it. Those who know the inside story know that the 7 great families are here to deal with Yang Kai, but for those who don't know the inside story, the inheritance war isn't over yet. The Yang family's inheritance war needs to come to a perfect conclusion. We can't just say that Yang Kai was knocked out of the inheritance war without knowing what was going on. Just as Yang Wei saw the situation clearly, Chiu Yimeng and Stars also saw the situation clearly. What happened next couldn't be called the inheritance war anymore. Instead, with the help of the inheritance war, the 7 families would join forces to perform a shocking show. The secret conversation between Chiu Yimeng and Stars didn't escape the eyes of the other young lords. Kang Zhan and Gao Rangfeng hesitated for a long time before approaching Chiu Yimeng and Stars. Hua Xingchen stared at the 2 people who were walking over and chuckled lightly. "Young Master Kang, how are your injuries?" "Many thanks for Brother Hua's concern, my injuries are no longer a problem. The little lord's actions were very discreet, he didn't hurt my bones." Kang Zhan looked indifferent and nodded lightly, not showing any resentment towards Yang Kai for injuring him. That's good, haha. Stars Hua smiled wryly. Seeing his rejection, Gao Rangfeng and Kang Zhan also felt helpless, the former saying, "Brother Hua, although Brother Kang and I were enemies with the little lord before, that was only because the situation forced us to. The 2 of us still admire the little lord's methods and personal strength. If possible, we would like to make friends with him." "Is that so?" Stars looked surprised. "I really didn't expect young Master Gao and young Master Kang to be such generous people. Yang Kai treated you so badly and you still want to be friends with him. Haha, is this sincere or not?" "Brother Hua, if you're still wary of us, then I have nothing to say to Brother Kang," Gao Rangfeng said with a serious expression. Stars stared at him. Gradually, his smile faded and he became serious. The latter looked at him with a calm expression. What do you want to say? Chiu Yimeng, who had been observing from the sidelines, suddenly asked. Gao Rangfeng frowned and asked in a low voice, Brother Kong and I are very puzzled as to why the 7 great families want to deal with the little lord while the Yang family hasn't done anything. The two of you have always been with the little lord, so you should know more than we do, right? Yes. Kong Zhan also nodded. This time's matter is really confusing. I was still recovering at home when I was sent out by my father. When I asked him, he wouldn't tell me anything. Young Lady Chiu and Brother Hua, if you know something and it's convenient for you to reveal it, you might as well tell us. If it's not convenient, just pretend we didn't ask. Hua Stars remained silent and just stared at Chiu Yimeng. Although he had spent as much time in Yang Kai's house as Chiu Yimeng, he didn't intervene in Yang Kai's affairs and didn't have much contact with the Yang family. On the other hand, Chiu Yimeng often discussed matters with Yang Kai in private and knew a lot about the house. The question Gao Rangfeng and Kong Zhan asked was exactly what he wanted to ask. Facing the three of them, Chiu Yimeng gently shook her head. I don't know, you're asking the wrong person. Gao Rangfeng and Kong Zhan couldn't help showing a look of disappointment. However, although I don't know the exact reason, I can roughly guess. Chiu Yimeng suddenly changed the subject. Oh, I'd like to hear the details. Kong Zhan and Gao Rangfeng's eyes lit up. For Yang Kai to be targeted like this, it must be because he has offended the public and violated some taboo of the 8 great families. Chiu Yimeng's expression was indifferent as she calmly explained. For example, the information that has been circulating. Cultivating an evil secret art, coming from the same sect as the Demon Lord, taking an evil sect disciples, showing signs of becoming the demon race. These things could be big or small, but now that someone wanted to make a fuss about them, it was a big deal. We can also see that. The family sent us here to reinforce this place with the same reason, but we always felt that things weren't so simple. Gao Rangfeng frowned and said in confusion. Is there another reason? Kong Zhan hurriedly asked. If it's not because of this, then Yang Kai has something our 7 families want, Chiu Yimeng sneered. After saying this, her eyes also lit up, her beautiful eyes trembling, suddenly realizing something important, her brow furrowed deeply as she pondered. All of them suddenly felt enlightened. The world was bustling, it was all about profit, the world was bustling, it was all about profit. If this was the case, then it was reasonable. Looking at Chiu Yimeng's expression, the 4 of them suddenly understood that she probably knew the reason. But since she didn't say anything, Kong Zhan and Gao Rangfeng didn't ask any more. However, the actions of the 8 great families this time made them feel like they were playing the fool. Since they wanted to deal with Yang Kai with the heritage and strength of the 8 great families, they could have just dealt with him in an open and above-board manner, but now they were actually using the inheritance war as a stage. All of them were young and full of vigor, so all of them suddenly had a subtle feeling. While these people were talking, Lu Qingyao had his eyes closed, seemingly not paying any attention to them, but no matter who it was, they all noticed that a faint divine sense had enveloped them. Obviously, Lu Qingyao was also paying attention to the conversation between the 4 of them. The 4 of them didn't guard against him. At the same time inside the house. Inside Yang Zhao's room, second young Lord Yang Zhao sat motionless on the edge of his bed. In just a dozen days, the once high-spirited Yang Zhao had become haggard, his face devoid of blood, his eyes sunken and bloodshot, giving him a terrifying appearance. Exan gracefully walked back and forth in front of Yang Zhao while explaining the current situation to him in detail. Gradually, Yang Zhao's seemingly lifeless face regained some color and his 2 red eyes slowly began to move. Second young lord, now that the 7 great families have sent people here, each of them has sent at least 20 Immortal Ascension Boundary 6-stage masters, many of them peak Immortal Ascension Boundary masters. The 7 great families hope that you can take command and defeat Yang Kai as quickly as possible and win the inheritance war. Why did the 7 great families send so many people to participate in the inheritance war? Yang Zhao asked. After not speaking for so long, Yang Zhao's voice had become hoarse and weak, as if he was terminally ill and on the verge of death. Exan giggled. Didn't I just tell you? Yang Kai is a dangerous person who is very likely to become the Demon Lord. The Yang family will not allow such a person to inherit the position of patriarch. The 7 great families and the Yang family share life and death in the central capital. Naturally they won't just stand by and watch. Right now, they are all gathered in the house, waiting for you to give the order. Second young lord, the position of patriarch of the Yang family is beckoning to you. Is it really just for this reason? Yang Zhao's eyes became cold as he stared at the young woman in front of him. What other reason could there be? Yi Xianro asked. A look of impatience appeared on her face as she stepped forward and hugged Yang Zhao's arm, coquettishly saying, "Second young lord, don't just sit there, let's tidy up our clothes and go out. It's not good to keep those people waiting for too long." "I'm not going." Yang Zhao still had a disheartened look on his face, not excited by this shocking news. Saying so, he shook off Yi Xianro's entanglement. Yi Xianro was startled, not having expected Yang Zhao to not be happy at all. She couldn't help wondering, "Second young lord, what's wrong?" Yang Zhao shook his head. "The inheritance war is a battle between my Yang family brothers, a battle of wits and courage, a battle of connections and personal charm. I've already lost this battle, a crushing defeat, there's no need to continue." "How could that be? There are still many people in the house and now there are even more masters. They're all here to assist you. Now is the time for you to make a comeback." Yi Xianro tried to persuade him. "The 7 great families, ha." Yang Zhao sneered, "If I use them to defeat ninth brother, even if I sit on the patriarch's seat, I won't be able to rest in peace for the rest of my life." "Second young lord, what are you saying?" Yi Xianro couldn't help spitting disdainfully. "If you only rely on the people in your house, you won't be able to defeat Yang Kai. Now that such a good opportunity has been placed in front of you, how can you not grasp it?" Pausing for a moment, she sneered, "Could it be that second young lord is afraid of the world's criticism? Second young lord, those who achieve great things don't bother with trifles, history books are written by the victors. Once you sit in the position of patriarch of the Yang family, who will dare criticize you?" Yang Zhao remained expressionless, not saying anything. Yi Xianro suddenly lost her patience and coldly said, "Second young lord, I hope you can consider the overall situation. This is something the Yang family has tacitly agreed to. If you don't do it, it's the same as defying the family's will." The dignified second young lord of the Yang family is now acting like a stray dog, what a joke." Yang Zhao suddenly raised his head and stared towards Yi Xianro with his red eyes. Yi Xianro panicked, but before she could react she felt her neck being gripped, causing her to feel dizzy. By the time she could react she had already been thrown onto the bed by Yang Zhao. The two's faces were almost pressed together, and Yi Xianro could clearly smell the hot breath from Yang Zhao's nostrils. It wasn't because he was aroused but rather because he was angry. His big hand was like an iron hoop, firmly gripping her neck. Yi Xianro suddenly panicked, suddenly remembering that she wasn't Yang Zhao's opponent at all. "Second young lord, what do you want to do?" Yi Xianro's expression was pained as she bit her red lips and looked towards Yang Zhao weakly. Chapter 543. Although I, Yang Zhao, am insidious and cunning, I will not use such disgraceful means to defeat ninth brother. In the inheritance war, I fought a battle of wits and courage with ninth brother, using every conceivable means possible. Even if I lose, I have no complaints. Cheap slut, you're not qualified to judge me. If you dare say such words again, I don't mind making you the first young lady of a super family to die in the inheritance war. What ninth brother dares to do, I dare do too, and I'll do it even more ruthlessly than him." Yang Zhao's hoarse and low voice was like the summons of a demon from the depths of hell, causing Yi Xianro's beautiful eyes to fill with panic and horror. Looking into Yang Zhao's eyes, Yi Xianro was really afraid. She could see that Yang Zhao wasn't trying to intimidate her. If she continued to speak rudely and irritate him, she would most likely die here. This young lady was wrong, this young lady won't dare. Yi Xianro immediately admitted defeat. As a woman she wouldn't feel ashamed. Yang Zhao coldly snorted and released her. After getting up from the bed, Yang Zhao said, "Those people gathered in my house just to borrow my name. Without me they can still borrow Big Brother's name. Since my Yang family allows them to do so, I can't resist. However, it's impossible to lead them to deal with ninth brother. Go, from this moment on, you will be in charge of all the affairs of the house." Yi Xianro, who was still in a state of panic, heard this and couldn't help breathing rapidly, trembling as she said, "Second young lord, there's no need to doubt, from now on this house is yours. The masters of the 7 great families will also be under your command. Aren't you also a woman who pursues power? If we weren't birds of a feather, it would have been impossible for us to get together. Now is your chance." Yi Xianro didn't care about the sarcasm in Yang Zhao's words, her cheeks flushing red as she seemed extremely excited, hesitating for a moment before asking, "But, how should I explain this to those people in the house? Do I need to explain? I'll agree to let them borrow my name. As for the explanation to the outside world, it's up to you." Exen smiled like a blooming flower as she sweetly said, "Second young lord has suffered a blow. He's not discouraged, but now his aura is unstable and he's on the verge of a breakthrough. He needs to enter secluded retreat." "Very good." Yang Zhao sneered, "It looks like I'll have to thank you for giving me such a good excuse and taking care of my face. Families, Exen young lord, perhaps in the future this young lady will be willing to submit to second young lord. I only hope that after second young master becomes the Yang family's patriarch in the future, he can take care of my Yi family." Yang Zhao sneered, "If you can survive against ninth brother then we'll talk." Exen rose. A trace of fear suddenly appeared in her eyes, but soon she calmed down and said softly, "With the current lineup in your house, Yang Kai won't have a chance, right?" Yang Zhao closed his eyes and no longer spoke. Yang left. Walking out of the house, he raised his head to take a look. Yang. And Yang sky. Yang. 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 She hadn't expected Yang Zhao to make such a decision. However, since he had already handed over the command authority to him, he could really let loose and do whatever he wanted. Her face filled with excitement, Exen giggles quickly echoed, causing those who heard them to feel creepy. Not long after, the leaders of the 7 forces in Yang Zhao's house gathered in the main hall. Exen sat at the head of the table. Below her was the Lu family's Lu Qingyao, Kang family's Kang Zhan, Gao family's Gao Rangfeng, Qiu family's Qiu Yimeng and Hua family's Hua Stars. The Meng family's Meng Shan Yi all stared at her with complicated expressions. Exen's expression was indifferent and graceful, without the slightest uneasiness. Sweeping her pair of peach blossom eyes around, Exen spoke first. "Brother Meng, did eldest young lord not come?" Meng Shan Yi, who was called out, couldn't help getting goosebumps as he quickly replied, "Eldest young lord said he's likely to break through in the next few days and is currently in retreat. This time, this Meng will be fully responsible for representing the eldest young lord's mansion." Exen looked surprised, covering her mouth as she giggled. "Ah, what a coincidence, second young lord is also about to break through and is currently in retreat. I'm afraid he won't be able to come out for a long time. The Yang family is really interesting, 2 brothers breaking through together. Sure enough, they're both dragons among men, worthy of admiration." Hearing her say this, everyone's expression couldn't help changing. Hua Stars asked, "Sister Yi, if second young lord doesn't come out, who will be in charge of the 7 family coalition? It won't be you, right?" "That's right," Exen replied sweetly and changed her sitting position. "It's me." Hua Stars grinned meaningfully. "Second young lord said that before he comes out, I will be in charge of all matters in the house. Everyone must listen to my orders." Exen's expression became cold as she declared. The expressions of the other 6 people also became extremely strange. "Elder brothers and elder sisters, are you questioning little sister's ability?" Exen took in everyone's expressions and asked softly with a smile. "We wouldn't dare." Kang Zhan shook his head. "It's just that for such an important matter, second young lord not to come out personally and only young lady Yi to deliver it, it's a bit inappropriate. After all, we all obey the orders of our respective families and are here to assist second young lord." "Brother Kang, are you suspecting that I am falsely informing second young lord?" Exen chuckled. "I don't have such courage. If you don't believe me, you can ask second young lord, he is currently in the house." Kang Zhan frowned, although his expression was a little unhappy. It wasn't convenient for him to say anything more. Since Exen said so, she must have obtained Yang Zhao's permission. Hua Stars quickly added, "Second young lord may not come out personally, but I think Sister Ye's prestige is not enough to convince everyone. If young Master Hua thinks so, then in young Master Hua's opinion, who can convince everyone?" As she spoke, her eyes flashed towards Qiu Yimeng. The latter's expression was indifferent and expressionless. Not only was Exen looking at her, but most of the people present also cast their eyes towards Qiu Yimeng. Compared with Exen Qiu Yimeng was undoubtedly more suitable to lead Yang Zhao's house. However, Qiu Yimeng had just been forced to leave Yang Kai's house this morning, so it wasn't appropriate for her to lead it now. Not to mention whether she was willing or not, the masters of the 7 families would definitely not allow her to do so, let alone obey her orders. "What does elder sister Qiu think?" Exen stared at Qiu Yimeng in a threatening manner. Being stared down by others, Qiu Yimeng couldn't remain silent any longer and simply said, "Little sister can, I believe in little sister's ability. Since elder sister says so, then little sister won't decline. Yixan Rose smiled knowingly and proudly. Stars sighed. He could understand why Chiu Yimeng didn't refute, but even so, his heart was still filled with anger. Yixan Rose's current appearance gave him the feeling of a villain who had achieved great success. She was a beautiful woman with an extremely graceful figure, but Stars really couldn't bring himself to admire her beauty. This was probably the first woman the central capital Wolf young Lord Hua had ever hated. Let's end this topic here. Yixan Rose's expression became solemn as she established her authority in Yang Kai's house with just a few words. All of you have received orders from your respective families to gather here for only one purpose, and that is to bring down the current rampant Yang Kai. If we fail, what the consequences will be, I think all of you are very clear in your hearts. With our current strength, we are indeed above Yang Kai's house, so we fully meet the conditions, but what should we do? How can we defeat Yang Kai's defenses at the lowest cost? Everyone please share your opinions. Little sister is still young, so I hope elder brothers and elder sisters can help. Sweeping her beautiful eyes around, Yixan Ro waited quietly. Lu Qingyao had his eyes closed and didn't express any opinion. Kang Zhan and Gao Rangfeng had their heads together and were whispering to each other, their expressions solemn as if they were seriously discussing something. The Hua family young lord looked up at the sky, as if a beautiful woman was flying by. Chiu Yimeng's expression was indifferent and sad. Meng Shani scratched his head helplessly. The 6 people had different expressions, but none of them spoke. After waiting for a long time, Yixan Rose smiled and said, "It looks like none of you have a good plan. If that's the case, why don't you listen to little sister's opinion?" Saying so, he didn't wait for anyone to respond and continued, "Although the masters of the 7 families have gathered in Yang Kai's mansion, and the number of top masters is endless, possessing an overwhelming advantage in strength, the power of Yang Kai's mansion cannot be ignored. He has an above immortal ascension boundary master on his side, the evil sect master Ling Tai Su. It is impossible for Ling Tai Su to be dispatched. After all, this is still the inheritance war. Yang Kai's blood warriors, because of the Yang family's restrictions, can only dispatch 2. However, Yang Kai also has an evil sect master and another peak immortal ascension boundary guard. These people are the biggest problem. If we attack rashly, it is very likely that there will be some unnecessary losses. The people from Yang Kai's house can't be taken lightly, they often make unexpected moves. I think young Master Hua and elder sister Chiu understand this better than any of us." Hua Xing chuckled, "Don't ask me, I don't know anything. In his house I've done nothing but pick up girls. There are so many beautiful women in his house." Yixan Rose smiled, "Young Master Hua is too modest, who doesn't know that your strength has increased so much that even Brother Gao isn't your opponent." Gao Rangfeng's face went black as he silently cursed this cheap maid for touching his sore spot. When Yang Kai attacked Yang Kang's house that night, Gao Rangfeng had been defeated by Hua Xing. Gao Rangfeng regarded this as the greatest humiliation of his life and had been diligently cultivating these past few days, hoping that one day he would be able to regain his lost face. Now that Yixan Ro had brought this up, Gao Rangfeng suddenly felt annoyed, so he simply said, "Young lady Yi, let's get down to business." Yixan Ro smiled at him and said apologetically, "Brother Gao doesn't need to take offense, little sister didn't mean to offend you, so I'll just apologize." Gao Rangfeng's expression became slightly awkward. Yixan Ro continued, "In light of the above situation, I think we should send out a surprise attack and catch Yang Kai off guard." Chapter 544. The young lords and young ladies of the 7 great families gathered together. Yixan Ro sat at the head of the table and spoke with confidence and assurance. Her words were clear and concise, making everyone look at her with admiration. This woman doesn't only know how to act coquettishly with others, everyone thought secretly. When she sat in that high and mighty position, she could quickly adjust her mentality and make remarks that were in line with her identity. Her words were reasonable and everyone couldn't help but pay attention to her. They all looked at her. Surprise attack? Gao Rangfeng couldn't help but ask, "What is a surprise attack?" Yixan Ro smiled and said, "What the little lord can't think of is a surprise attack." Gao Rangfeng frowned. Yixan Ro's actions made him feel a little uncomfortable, so he quickly said, "Be more specific." Yixan Ro chuckled and turned her eyes to Chiu Yimeng, her beautiful eyes flashing. "Elder sister Chiu is the biggest surprise attack for the little lord." Chiu Yimeng suddenly looked up and glared at Yixan Ro. Stars Hua also let out an evil laugh. The other young lords all wore strange expressions. Everyone suddenly understood what Yi Xianro was planning. Elder sister Chiu has been working with the little lord for a long time and is regarded as his right-hand woman. She knows many things about his house quite well. I'm afraid no one knows more than elder sister Chiu. On top of that, elder sister only left Yang Kai this morning. The little lord would never have thought that in just one day elder sister Chiu would become his enemy and attack him, right? Yi Xianro, you'd better think carefully about what you're saying. Stars was stared at her, his eyes flashing a cold light. Yi Xianro sneered, Wuxia, what do you mean? Of course I know what I'm talking about, but your attitude, could it be you don't like me? Stars was sneered. Don't forget, I now represent the second young lord. If you don't obey me, then you don't obey second young master. I have the right to ask you to leave this mansion. A single rat can spoil a pot of porridge. Second young master's mansion cannot have a black sheep. Yi Xianro's words were filled with sarcasm and ridicule. Stars's expression changed. She wanted to leave angrily, but when she thought of the old man's threat before she left, she had to suppress the restlessness in her heart. His mouth moved but no sound could be heard. It seemed like he was cursing. Yi Xianro smiled again and said in a warm voice, Actually, little sister has her own considerations for making such a proposal. What I said before was only one of them. What other considerations do you have? Gao Rangfeng asked. He suddenly realized that after experiencing the inheritance war, Yi Xianro's growth was simply terrifying. Before this, she didn't have such sharp thoughts and wasn't so strong. It was probably because she had been by the second young master's side for too long and had been influenced by him. From the last time the little lord killed Nansheng and Xiang Chu, it's clear that the little lord values his friends very much. Elder sister Chiu is also his friend, so I think with the little lord's personality, he wouldn't have the heart to kill elder sister Chiu. That's right. Kang Zhan nodded gently, thinking that Yi Xianro's analysis was reasonable. Last time, Nansheng and Xiang Chu, because they had injured a High Heaven Pavilion disciple, were chased down by Yang Kai for 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. Even if they hid in Yang Zhao's mansion, they still couldn't escape their fate of death. Chiu Yimeng and Yang Kai had been together for so long, the two of them having gone through thick and thin together. Chiu Yimeng had also made great contributions to Yang Kai's mansion, so with Yang Kai's character, it would be strange if he dared to lay his hands on her. So, if elder sister Chiu goes out and casually brings some people with her, she can easily defeat the little lord without shedding a drop of blood. Yi Xianro looked at Chiu Yimeng with a smile and asked, Elder sister Chiu, what do you think? Chiu Yimeng's expression was indifferent as she stared at him from afar, unhurriedly saying, You think too much. Although Yang Kai cares about friendship, he is also a selfish person. When there is a conflict between these two, he will choose to maintain his own interests. Yi Xianro looked surprised. Elder sister Chiu really understands the little lord. I think this matter must be handled by you. If you don't try once, how can you know it won't work? Saying so, she shot a contemptuous look towards Chiu Yimeng, as if she wouldn't give up until Chiu Yimeng agreed. Good. Chiu Yimeng suddenly smiled. Since little sister says so, elder sister will listen to you this time. Let's see if I can capture Yang Kai with my own means. Sister is indeed a heroine among women. You're straightforward enough. Many thanks to little sister for taking care of me. Elder sister will give this credit to elder sister. Chiu Yimeng smiled gently. Yi Xianro also smiled. Us sisters don't need to say such things. A few days ago, little sister also received elder sister's care. Little sister will remember it in her heart, she will never forget it for the rest of her life. Inside the side hall, the atmosphere suddenly became gloomy. Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, and the others couldn't help shivering. They didn't know what these two women were talking about, but they could tell that something had happened between the two of them a few days ago. A few days ago, Yi Xianro had secretly run to Yang Kai's house to seduce him, but as a result, Yang Kai had torn her clothes and left her alone in the side hall. Later, Chiu Yimeng had sent a few guards to guard the door. The naked Yi Xianro was imprisoned for 3 whole days. After 3 days, Chiu Yimeng ordered a maidservant to deliver a set of clothes. How could Yi Xianro forget such a great shame? The first thing the Seven Families Alliance did was to find fault with Chiu Yimeng. It could be said that Chiu Yimeng was using her power to avenge a personal grudge, but her excuses and means were quite clever, so clever that Chiu Yimeng couldn't refute her and could only follow her lead by the nose. Then it's settled, elder sister will act as the vanguard. I hope elder sister can win. Thank you for your kind words. There's no time to lose, let's go now. Yi Xianro said. Now. The others couldn't help being taken aback, never having expected Yi Xen to be so eager. Speed is crucial in war. Taking advantage of the darkness of the night, perhaps we can achieve twice the result with half the effort. Yi Xen smiled slightly. That makes sense, then elder sister will set out. Qiu Yimeng chuckled, stood up and walked out. Qiu Yimeng. Wuxia stood up and called out. Qiu Yimeng didn't look back, just slowly shaking her head as she walked out. After Qiu Yimeng left, Wuxia turned around and glared at Yi Xen coldly. Little girl, if something happens to Qiu Yimeng, you can just wait to be sold to the cheapest brothel. At that time, anyone can taste your beauty, and within 3 or 5 months, you will become a pile of rotten meat that even wild dogs will disdain. Yi Xen's eyes flashed coldly, but surprisingly she didn't get angry and instead giggled. Isn't young Lord Hua's worry unnecessary? How could elder sister Qiu have an accident? Do you really think the little lord would do anything to her? It seems that the little lord really has become the demon race and doesn't even recognize his own family. After a pause she added, since young Lord Hua is so worried, let's go out and take a look just in case. Kang Zhan and Gao Rangfeng couldn't help nodding, feeling that Yi Xen's decision was the right one. None of them thought that Qiu Yimeng alone could defeat Yang Kai. Even if Yang Kai cared about their friendship, he wasn't a fool. How could he allow himself to be captured without putting up a fight? If they followed in case a fight broke out, they would be able to provide support. As they spoke, everyone stood up and walked out. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse, bathing the entire war city in a silver glow. In Yang Kai's mansion, the cultivator had calmed down from the shock of Qiu Yimeng and Wuxia's departure. The mansion's current advantage was great. Even if Qiu Yimeng and Wuxia had left, they still felt that in the inheritance war Yang Kai would definitely win. However, Yang Kai had said during the day that he might become an enemy of the 8 great families, so they were a little worried. After all, they were all young people who would want to go against the 8 great families. This wasn't just a matter of themselves, but also a matter of the sect or family behind them. In the middle of the night, the mansion was quiet. Kai Yang, who was in the middle of meditating, suddenly opened his eyes shining brightly. Hurriedly getting up, he walked out. Just as he opened the door, the sound of fluttering clothes came from inside the mansion, and in the next moment, Ying Jiu, Old Demon, and Tang Yuxian appeared in front of him. Little Lord. Tang Yuxian called out. I know. Yang Kai's expression became cold. Call everyone up. Tang Yuxian quickly released her spiritual energy and enveloped the entire house. Perceiving this divine sense as a reminder and summon, the forces in the house quickly gathered. A sigh came from the side as a faintly discernible figure slowly appeared and a light blue-haired Shui Ling suddenly appeared. Ingzhou's eyes narrowed. Even now, he was extremely wary of this mysterious little girl. At such a young age, she had actually reached the Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage and possessed a special constitution. If they were to fight one-on-one, Ingzhou believed she wasn't his opponent, but he also had no way to keep her here, even if he used his Mad Tyrant blood skill. It seems that Qiu Yimeng has brought people here. Shui Ling sighed faintly. What a pity, I got along quite well with her. Yang Kai, how did you and her end up like this? I don't know, don't ask me. Yang Kai said angrily. Since Shui Ling was aware of the identity of these people, how could Yang Kai not have noticed? The one leading this group was actually Qiu Yimeng, who had just left this morning. Accompanying her were more than 20 masters at the Immortal Ascension Boundary 6th stage or above. Besides Qiu Yimeng's aura, everyone else was filled with murderous intent. Obviously, they were here to cause trouble for Yang Kai's mansion. Yang Kai didn't think Qiu Yimeng would do such a thing. After getting along with her for so long, Yang Kai understood her quite well. What kind of personality she had, Yang Kai knew best, but it was an indisputable fact that she had brought people here. Let's go out and have a look. Yang Kai coldly snorted and took the lead. Ingzhou, Tang Yuxian, and the old demon quickly followed. A short time later, the group arrived outside the mansion and the cultivator inside quickly and methodically gathered around Yang Kai. Chapter 545. Not far from the front of the house, Qiu Yimeng stood alone. 20 meters behind her, more than 20 Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters belonging to the Qiu family stood in a row. The pressure they exuded together was terrifying. After a moment of shock, Luo Xiaoman shouted in surprise, Elder Sister Qiu. As she shouted, she rushed out of the crowd towards Qiu Yimeng, her pair of large jade peaks bouncing up and down, a spectacular sight to behold. Of all the people present, she had the best relationship with Qiu Yimeng. The two of them, one was smart and capable while the other was confused and delicate. Their personalities complemented each other, so Qiu Yimeng was quite good to her and the two of them had a very close relationship. When Qiu Yimeng left this morning, Luo Xiaoman had cried for a long time, and even now her eyes were still red, her spirit still unable to recover. At this moment, seeing Qiu Yimeng return, Luo Xiaoman was happier than anyone else, her beautiful eyes filled with joy, like a lost child who had finally found her way home, hurriedly rushing forward. Qiu Yimeng's face held a trace of sadness, her expression indifferent. When the distance between the two of them was only about 5 meters, Qiu Yimeng gently raised her hand. A burst of light shot out from her hand and landed in front of Luo Xiaoman's feet. A cloud of dust flew up. Luo Xiaoman froze and stared blankly at Qiu Yimeng in front of her. "Don't come any closer, otherwise don't blame me for not showing mercy." Qiu Yimeng stared at Luo Xiaoman coldly, her tone cold as if she was a stranger. "Elder sister Qiu." Luo Xiaoman murmured, her eyes filled with confusion, seemingly unable to figure out what had just happened. Qiu Yimeng had never attacked her before, but just now, if she had run a little faster or if Qiu Yimeng had hit her a little farther, her legs would have been directly crippled. Feeling Qiu Yimeng's indifference and rejection, Luo Xiaoman's heart instantly filled with great pain, her mouth filled with bitterness as she subconsciously felt a trace of panic. Just as she was at a loss for what to do, she felt a big hand on her shoulder. Turning around, she saw Yang Kai slowly shaking his head at her. "Go back." Yang Kai ordered lightly, not waiting for her to respond before tossing her back. After Luo Xiaoman landed on the ground, she suddenly found that the atmosphere was a bit different. Outside the mansion, Yang Kai and Qiu Yimeng stared at each other face to face, just like the scene when the Qiu family's first young lady left this morning, neither of them saying a word. But anyone could see that the situation now was completely different from when they had parted in the morning. "Forced?" Yang Kai tilted his head and stared at Qiu Yimeng. "No." Qiu Yimeng gently shook her head. "You didn't?" Yang Kai smiled. "If you weren't forced, why did you bring these people here? You can't possibly come and seek refuge with me, right? What I came here for, you know in your heart, why ask so many questions?" Qiu Yimeng's expression remained indifferent. "How would I know if you don't tell me? Aren't you the same? You won't tell me anything, so why should I tell you?" Qiu Yimeng retorted. Yang Kai shrugged helplessly. "First young lady, there's no need to talk nonsense with him." Suddenly, a voice called out from behind Qiu Yimeng. As these words were spoken, the Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters, who were originally 20 meters away from Qiu Yimeng, stepped forward and stood behind her, each of them exuding a tyrannical aura. "You are." Yang Kai frowned. "Qiu family elder, Fallen Leaves Hall's Hall Master, Chen Xian." The man coldly snorted and raised his head slightly, saying arrogantly, "The first young lady wishes to speak a few words with you because of our old friendship. She should have finished by now." Yang Kai's expression remained unchanged as he nodded. "It's an honor to meet you. The Fallen Leaves Hall's Hall Master is indeed famous." The Qiu family's Fallen Leaves Hall was equivalent to the Yang family's Blood Warrior Hall. Each of the 8 great families had such an institution. The experts nurtured by these institutions were all extremely loyal to their families. However, because each family's heritage was different, their prestige was different, and their training methods were different. Therefore, among the 8 great families' institutions, the Blood Warrior Hall was the most famous, and the masters from the Blood Warrior Hall were much stronger than those from the other 7 families. This was especially true for the Blood Warrior Hall's Mad Tyrant Blood skill, a taboo martial skill that allowed the Blood Warrior Hall to stand above any other institution. The Qiu family's Fallen Leaves Hall was such an institution. The masters who came from it were all very powerful. Once they took action, it was as simple as the autumn wind sweeping up fallen leaves, never giving their enemy any time to breathe. It was because of this principle that the people of the Fallen Leaves Hall were generally impatient and hated others wasting their time. While Qiu Yimeng and Yang Kai were exchanging a few words, they were already unable to restrain themselves, a clear indication of their temperament. Chen Xian snorted, turning a blind eye to Yang Kai's flattery and sneered, "Since you've finished speaking, I ask the first young lady to step back." Turning to Yang Kai, he coldly shouted, "Little brat, your time of death has come. Although you are a young lord of the Yang family, you cultivate a demonic secret art, collude with demons, and attempt to subvert the 8 great families. Today is the day you die." Chen Xian and the other masters from the Fallen Leaves Hall had all been in the central capital, so they didn't have a deep understanding of Yang Kai and the forces of Yang Kai's mansion. Although they had also been paying attention to the progress of the Inheritance War and had heard from others about how powerful Yang Kai and Yang Kai's forces were, Qin Xian had always thought that such news was simply exaggerated. As a peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Master, how could he put a mere Immortal Ascension Boundary second stage cultivator in his eyes, especially one so young? It wasn't only Qin Xian who thought so, most of the masters from the other 7 families also had the same thought. In their opinion, this time the 7 families had dispatched so many masters to the Inheritance War was simply making a mountain out of a molehill. So tonight, when Qiu Yimeng brought them here to cause trouble for Yang Kai's mansion, Qin Xian and the other masters from the Fallen Leaves Hall were very excited, thinking that they could easily break through Yang Kai's defenses. Even Ling Tai Su, who was in charge of the mansion, wasn't put in their eyes. Although Ling Tai Su was an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master, he was still the sect master of Evil Sect, the Demon Lord's master. If he dared to act casually, the 8 masters from the Seal Temple would definitely not sit idly by. Listening to Qin Xian's shameless boasting, Yang Kai's expression became cold. What a big hat! Hall Master Qin, please wait a moment. Qiu Yimeng suddenly interjected, I still have a few words to say to Yang Kai. Qin Xian coldly snorted, but he didn't refuse Qiu Yimeng's request. Before they came here, Qiu Shoucheng had already told him that although this time's operation was taking advantage of the Inheritance War and using the name of the 8 great families' young lords and young ladies, the one who really made decisions on the battlefield was Qin Xian. In other words, to a certain extent, Qiu Yimeng had to listen to Qin Xian for the time being. If it was just a few words, he could tolerate it. Yang Kai glanced at him coldly before turning to Qiu Yimeng and asking softly, why? Because my father said that as long as I defeat and capture you, I can inherit the Qiu family as a woman. You know how much I long for that day to come. Although we've been getting along quite well before, compared to my lifelong ambition, who do you think you are? Haha. Yang Kai couldn't help but laugh. I'm not much, but do you think you can convince yourself with your nonsense? When did I start talking nonsense? I'm telling the truth. Today I came here to defeat you. Yang Kai, since I've been assisting you these past few days, why don't you obediently allow yourself to be captured? If we really fight, everyone's feelings will be hurt, and I'm definitely not your opponent. Good. Yang Kai nodded with a smile. On the other side, Qin Xian's eyes lit up, but he quickly became vigilant as he stared closely at Yang Kai's movements to prevent him from playing any tricks. The people from Yang Kai's mansion were all stunned. They hadn't expected that in just one day Qiu Yimeng would actually be willing to stand on the opposite side of Yang Kai and personally bring people to cause trouble for Yang Kai. Seeing her speak so calmly and indifferently, many people were filled with righteous indignation, but considering their previous friendship, they didn't curse her out loud. If it had been someone else who said this, how could they have just let it go? They would likely have already cursed all 18 generations of this person's ancestors. Even so, their expressions were not very good. Luo Xiaoman's eyes were filled with tears as she stared at Qiu Yimeng incredulously. Are you really willing? Qiu Yimeng was stunned. What's wrong with that? If you capture me, you can become the Qiu family's patriarch, right? Yang Kai smiled. You've done so much for me, now it's my turn to do the same for you. What's wrong with that? Qiu Yimeng's expression changed, a strange light flashing across her pair of beautiful eyes, as if she was moved to tears by these words. First young lady. Qin Xian saw that Qiu Yimeng didn't seem to have any intention of fighting and couldn't help urging her. If they could really capture Yang Kai without shedding a single drop of blood, then his Qiu family would have made a great contribution. Qiu Shoucheng had said that once Yang Kai was captured, he would send him back to the central capital's Qiu family at all costs. Qiu Yimeng turned a deaf ear to these words, her face still filled with gratitude, but suddenly she ground her teeth and shouted, You think saying such words will soften my heart and make me not attack you? You bastard, you're really despicable. Yang Kai grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth, a look of embarrassment appearing on his face. You really think so? Qiu Yimeng grumbled angrily. She had actually been moved by his words just a moment ago, but now her heart was filled with hatred as she shouted, No matter what you think, since I've come here today, I won't go back empty-handed. Saying so, Yang Kai suddenly raised his hand and summoned a foot-long dagger into his grasp. This dagger glowed with a silver light, obviously a high-grade artifact. Yuan Qi burst out fiercely, seemingly without mercy. Cries of alarm rang out as no one had expected the change to happen so quickly. Even Ing Jiu didn't have time to react. Qin Xian and the many masters from the Qiu family's Fallen Leaves Hall all held their breaths, secretly anticipating what would happen next. Chapter 546. Facing Qiu Yimeng's blade, Yang Kai was still smiling as if he didn't know the difference between life and death. Staring at Qiu Yimeng, who was so close to him, he didn't even condense his true qi as if he really had no intention of fighting back. Dix reading Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes flashed with determination as her hands moved faster and faster. In the next moment, Yang Kai's face changed dramatically as he stared at her in shock, suddenly reaching out to grab her. Pooh. Accompanied by a muffled groan, blood splattered out. Cries of alarm rang out as the powerhouses behind the two of them rushed out and madly rushed towards the center. Chen Xian and the others' eyes were filled with fanaticism as they stared at the stunned Yang Kai, grinning widely. Ingjiu, Tang Yuxian and the old demon simultaneously pushed their strength, leapt over Yang Kai and Qiu Yimeng's heads, and charged towards Chen Xian and the others. The battle broke out in an instant, and no one below the immortal ascension boundary was able to intervene. The leaders of the younger generation didn't dare to approach and could only display their martial skills and artifacts from a distance. Brilliant light bloomed as energy raged. In the chaos, Luo Xiaoman stumbled over to Yang Kai and Qiu Yimeng's side, but after seeing the situation clearly, she immediately covered her mouth, her beautiful eyes trembling. Qiu Yimeng fell softly into Yang Kai's arms, her face pale and bloodless as she silently smiled towards Yang Kai. In her lower abdomen there was a dagger, the same artifact she had taken out before. Yang Kai, on the other hand, was unscathed. "What are you doing?" Yang Kai shouted angrily. "I couldn't." Qiu Yimeng smiled bitterly. "I could only come up with this method to temporarily eliminate myself." Just now, Qiu Yimeng's attack had suddenly changed directions halfway through and stabbed towards him. Yang Kai had seen this and tried to stop her. However, Qiu Yimeng's expression had been so serious that Yang Kai had been deceived by her for a moment, thinking she would really attack him. When he wanted to stop it, it was too late. Blood flowed from Qiu Yimeng's lower abdomen and soon dyed her clothes red, giving her a sense of scarlet beauty. "Stop talking." Yang Kai frowned, but he wasn't very nervous. Qiu Yimeng's wound wasn't fatal, and the dagger hadn't penetrated too deeply. With the efficacy of the myriad drug milk, it was likely that she would be healed in 1 to 2 days without leaving a scar. "I have a question to ask you." Qiu Yimeng gasped for breath but stared stubbornly at Yang Kai. "If you have something to say, then say it." Yang Kai coldly snorted. Today he was depressed because of Qiu Yimeng. Qiu Yimeng didn't care, instead her eyes filled with expectation as she asked softly, "If I really wanted to stab you, wouldn't you have resisted? What do you think?" Yang Kai glared at her. "I don't know. I never knew what you were thinking. I'm not an idiot, how could I just stand there and let you stab me?" "Sure enough." Qiu Yimeng laughed. "You've always been a selfish person, but if you weren't like this, you wouldn't be you." Yang Kai smiled wickedly. "If you really had the intention to stab me just now, you'd be finished today. What would you do to me? Kill me?" "I wouldn't go that far, I would just strip off your clothes and then, spank your ass." Qiu Yimeng suddenly blushed. No one had ever said such shameless words to her before. She didn't know why, but in her mind, the scene of her naked body being pressed down on the bed by Yang Kai suddenly appeared. She couldn't help feeling ashamed. "Don't talk about that." Luo Xiaoman stood to the side at a loss. "Hurry up and heal yourself." "I won't die." Yang Kai's expression was indifferent as he picked up Qiu Yimeng by the waist, glancing over at the chaotic battlefield, a cold light flashing across his eyes before he stepped into the house. Luo Xiaoman followed closely behind him. A short time later, the three of them arrived at Su Yan's room. Pushing the door open, Yang Kai was greeted by an icy chill. Su Yan was sitting on the ice bed, seemingly cultivating, but in fact, her mind wasn't here at all. With the battle in Yang Kai's house, she naturally paid attention, but because she was from High Heaven Pavilion, it wasn't convenient for her to appear, so she could only wait quietly. "What happened? How did you get hurt like this?" Su Yan asked quickly when she saw Qiu Yimeng. "This stupid woman stabbed herself," Yang Kai said as he put Qiu Yimeng down on the ice bed. The cold air quickly invaded her body, causing her to shiver involuntarily. However, thanks to the cold, the bleeding from her wounds was quickly alleviated. "I'll leave her to you," Yang Kai said before turning around and walking out. The location of Qiu Yimeng's wound was too delicate. If it had been anywhere else, Yang Kai could have dealt with it himself, but since it was her lower abdomen, he was too embarrassed to do so, so he could only send her to Su Yan. Su Yan also had some myriad drug milk, so she knew what to do. The sound of battle rang out one after another, and as far as the eye could see, half the sky seemed to be illuminated by a burst of light. When Yang Kai returned to the mansion, he found that the battle had reached a state of anxiety, and both sides were evenly matched. The Chiu family's Falling Leaves Hall had more than 20 Immortal Ascension Boundary 6-stage masters. On his side, there were 3 peak Immortal Ascension Boundary masters, Ingjiu, Tang Yuxian and Old Demon, each of them possessing heaven-defying strength. Shui Ling also used her special constitution to stir up trouble, disrupting the enemy's vision and hearing. The other Immortal Ascension Boundary masters were also numerous. In terms of numbers alone, Yang Kai's side undoubtedly had a great advantage, but the Falling Leaves Hall's masters were not to be underestimated, so even if they had the advantage in numbers, they still couldn't gain any advantage. For a time, the two sides had fallen into a bitter struggle. Since the beginning of the Inheritance War, Yang Kai's mansion had never encountered such a situation. Every time they fought, they had defeated their enemies with overwhelming superiority. Qin Xian and the others also felt this was incredible. They were originally full of confidence, but after the battle really began, they discovered that the rumors they had heard were not exaggerated at all. In fact, they had even underestimated the strength of Yang Kai's cultivator. The Falling Leaves Hall's masters could be said to have been dispatched in full force, but now they couldn't do anything to a single Yang family young lord's mansion. Qin Xian inexplicably felt a sense of shame and humiliation, causing him to become even more ruthless and merciless. Yang Kai observed for a moment, but didn't enter the fray himself, instead casting his gaze towards the distance. He felt that there were many masters gathering in that direction. The cultivation of these masters wasn't any worse than the Falling Leaves Hall's masters, but their numbers were several times greater. If he wasn't mistaken, these masters should be from the other 6 families. Just as Yang Kai expected, a kilometer away, atop a 3-story pavilion, led by Yi Xinro, the young lords and young ladies of the 6 super families gathered, all of them watching the battle from a distance. Although it was late at night, the moon was still shining brightly, so they were still able to clearly see everything that happened in front of Yang Kai's mansion. Qiu Yimeng's violent attack and the traces of Yang Kai's actions were all clearly visible to all of them. However, the final result shocked all of them. The one lying in a pool of blood was actually Qiu Yimeng. Yi Xinro's delicate face flashed a gloating look as she coldly snorted, "Yang Kai really has lost all humanity." Even after assisting him for so long and having such a good relationship with Qiu Yimeng, he can still be so ruthless as to kill her. Kang Zhan and the others remained silent. Although they didn't like Yi Xinro's arrogant attitude, they still agreed with her current statement. Because they were too far away, they hadn't been able to clearly see what had happened, so they simply believed that Qiu Yimeng had really been injured by Yang Kai. Since Qiu Yimeng entered Yang Kai's house, she had worked hard without complaint, serving as Yang Kai's left and right hands, leading the entire mansion, paying a huge price, but in the end she had actually been injured by him. If it were anyone else, wouldn't they be bitterly disappointed? Being able to do such a thing, how could Yang Kai still have any humanity left? Obviously he was selfish to the extreme. Only Stars Hua, on the other hand, wore a ferocious expression as he sneered. Although he didn't see clearly what had just happened, he didn't agree with Yi Xinro's statement. "It looks like my plan has failed." Yi Xinro said so, but there wasn't the slightest trace of disappointment on her face. Instead, there was a trace of joy, as if she was quite happy to see Qiu Yimeng suffer. "If I had known this would happen, I would never have let elder sister Qiu take such a risk alone." "Ha, it seems we overestimated Yang Kai's moral standards. This person is beyond saving." Evil demons are generally like this, they don't even recognize their own family and friends, their methods are cruel, haha. "What do we do now?" Gao Rangfeng asked in a deep voice. Qiu Yimeng, this so-called surprise attack, had not played the role she should have. This made him wonder if Yi Xinro had deliberately done this because she knew this would happen, causing him to feel a sense of revulsion. "Let's wait and see." Yi Xinro didn't show the slightest trace of nervousness and instead wore a calm expression. "Look, they're fighting. Shouldn't we send reinforcements?" Kang Zhan frowned. "If we just leave them be, I'm afraid the Qiu family will gossip. Let them fight for a while." Yi Xinro smiled lightly. "Ingjiu and Tang Yuxian have both used their Mad Tyrant blood skill. I don't think anyone from your family is willing to face them at this time, right? Let's wait for the Mad Tyrant blood skill's effect to wear off, then we'll join in." Everyone's expression became extremely strange, but none of them refuted her words. No one wanted to see any of their family's masters suffer any losses. After he finished speaking, everyone waited quietly. The battle was getting more and more intense and people were constantly being injured or killed. Yang Kai's mansion had suffered losses, and so did the Fallen Leaves Hall. Although the masters from the Fallen Leaves Hall were powerful, in this kind of melee, they couldn't guarantee their own safety. Especially when Yang Kai joined the battle, the balance was instantly broken, and the violent eruption of evil energy descended. Yang Kai, who was only at the Immortal Ascension Boundary second stage, was able to single-handedly challenge a peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Master. After cultivating his knowledge Yang Kai was able to display the full power of his soul skills. Coupled with his small sword-shaped artifact, he was often able to kill an enemy with a single blow. The Fallen Leaves Hall had suffered heavy losses, and the situation was becoming more and more intense. Amidst the fierce battle, Qin Xian could no longer bear it and shouted, "Young Lady Yi." Chapter 547. He was calling for reinforcements. If the others didn't act now, he would have no choice but to retreat. If they continued to fight, the entire Fallen Leaves Hall would likely perish here. The cultivation and methods of these people from Yang Kai's mansion were completely beyond his expectations. These Immortal Ascension Boundary cultivators not only had extremely pure Yuan Qi, but they were also equipped with a dazzling array of artifacts. Was this guy really an Immortal Ascension Boundary cultivator from a first-class family? Why did he feel like he was even richer than them? Qin Xian was depressed. The Fallen Leaves Hall was one of the most important halls of the Qiu family. The masters inside were loyal to the family, so the artifacts they were equipped with were naturally not bad. It could even be said that they were the best in the entire Qiu family, but compared to these Immortal Ascension Boundary masters from Yang Kai's mansion, they were still a bit shabby. On top of that, the pills these people had taken during the battle were also quite strange. Qin Xian and the other masters from the Fallen Leaves Hall were already gasping for breath, unable to maintain their Yuan Qi, but their opponents were still full of vigor, unscrupulously using their Yuan Qi, not worried about overdrawing their strength. What kind of pill had such a powerful restorative effect? Although he had long known that Yang Kai's mansion had the support of Medicine King's Valley, Qin Xian hadn't realized how powerful these two forces were until now. Hearing his call, Yi Xenro, who was a kilometer away, could no longer sit idly by. The Qiu family's Fallen Leaves Hall had lost a lot of people, all of which she saw clearly, so she couldn't help coldly snorting, "A bunch of wastes." After saying so, she put on a leisurely expression and said, "Let's go." It seemed she was about to do something she was very unwilling to do. Gao Rangfeng and Kang Zhan saw her like this, then glanced over at the Qiu family's Fallen Leaves Hall and couldn't help feeling a sense of sympathy. The distance of a kilometer was quickly crossed. Before they had even arrived, Yi Xenro's tender voice spread throughout War City. "Yang Kai, you colluded with evil, sooner or later you will fall into the demonic path. Don't be so stubborn, obediently hand over those evil sect disciples in your mansion and accept your punishment. Out of consideration for the 8 great families' many years of coexistence in the central capital, we won't do anything to you. If you continue to stubbornly resist, you will only implicate those around you." In the midst of the fierce battle, Yang Kai's figure flickered as he jumped out of the battle circle. He quietly floated in midair and fixed his eyes on the other side with an indifferent expression. The young masters and young mistresses of the 6 great families took the lead. Behind each of them, there was a similar number of experts as the Fallen Leaves Hall. These people looked at Yang Kai, and with the exception of Yi Xenro, who had a smug look on her face, everyone else looked somewhat ashamed. Huastar sneered, "Sister Yi, you're quite eloquent." That speech instantly put Yang Kai in a dead end in terms of righteousness. Huastars asked himself if he could think of something like that. Yi Xenro seemed to have put a lot of effort into figuring out how to force Yang Kai into a passive position. "Missy." After a moment of silence, Yang Kai suddenly grinned, "I haven't seen you for a few days yet you've become so proud of yourself. Where's my second brother?" Yi Xenro's eyes flashed a trace of resentment. Last time, she had failed to seduce Yang Kai and was instead scolded by him as a broken shoe, so she naturally held a grudge against him. Her heart was filled with resentment, but she didn't show it on her face as she simply smiled and said, "Second young lord is currently in retreat, so I'm taking over all the matters in the house." Yang Kai nodded gently, his expression becoming much better. "I knew my second brother wouldn't be so despicable and shameless. It turns out there was someone else in charge of this operation, no wonder." Yi Xenro's complexion changed greatly as she cursed under her breath. Yang Kai continued to smile, a strange expression appearing on his face as he said in an ambiguous tone, Miss Yi, I'm really sorry about what happened a few days ago, but after thinking about it carefully, I realized I was wrong. Since you delivered yourself to my doorstep, I shouldn't have refused. You're so beautiful, your body is so delicate. Even if I stripped naked with you, I wouldn't have lost anything, instead I would have profited. At that time, I don't know why my brain cramped, but I didn't take advantage of you, I really regret it. Saying so, he slapped his thigh, his face filled with regret. Listening to him say this, Kang Zhan, Gao Rangfeng, and the others' expressions suddenly became strange, all of them turning their heads to look at Yi Xenro. They didn't know when Yi Xenro had tried to seduce Yang Kai, but looking at this situation, it seemed that Yi Xenro had gone in high spirits only to return disappointed. This was really the biggest joke in the world. Little Lord, you're really bold. Everyone couldn't help admiring him. If Yi Xenro had tried to seduce him, perhaps he would have fallen for her. I figured it out now. Yang Kai said seriously, Young Lady Yi, why don't we go find a secluded place now so I can satisfy you? My strength isn't bad and my skill in bed isn't bad either. Yi Xenro's expression became awkward, her shoulders trembling with anger. She hadn't expected Yang Kai to be so shameless, even daring to bring up such private matters in front of her. She wanted to refute him, but she didn't have the courage to do so she couldn't help angrily shouting, Yang Kai, don't try to slander me with your filthy words. How could I, Yi Xenro, be such a person? Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, and the others all turned their heads and stared at her strangely. Stars even whistled frivolously. You don't believe me? Yi Xenro glared at these people, her pretty face flushed red. No one paid her any attention. Whether you believe it or not, nothing happened between me and that bastard. Yi Xenro gasped for breath, seemingly really angry. That's right, young Lord Kai refused to let you in. What could have possibly happened between you two? Star said sarcastically. Yi Xenro took a deep breath, and after exhaling, her anger and agitation had completely disappeared. Staring towards Yang Kai, her beautiful eyes filled with a cold light, her lips curling into a sharp smile as she gently nodded, Yang Kai, I didn't come here to talk nonsense with you, I came here to capture you and bring you back to the central capital to wash away your evil aura and sins. This is also the will of the 8 great families. Saying so, she pointed her finger, capture Yang Kai, anyone who dares to resist, kill. She had become angry out of shame and wasn't prepared to engage in a verbal confrontation with Yang Kai anymore. The 6 groups of people behind her immediately followed her orders, their momentum soaring like a rainbow. Do you think I don't have anyone? Yang Kai roared, Tu Feng. 7 figures suddenly flew out from the mansion, led by Tu Feng, the remaining 7 blood warriors. Including Ying Jiao and Tang Yuxian who had been dispatched before, the 9 blood warriors in the mansion had all been dispatched. Mad Tyrant blood skill. Roars rang out as a fierce surge of vitality filled the air, causing everyone's eyes to tremble. All of War City seemed to be on the verge of collapse at this moment. Yi Xenro's face filled with both fear and excitement as she shouted, Yang Kai, don't forget this is the inheritance war. You have an agreement with the Yang family that Tu Feng and the others cannot intervene in the inheritance war. If you dare allow them to participate, it is tantamount to violating your agreement with the family. This is no longer the inheritance war. Yang Kai sneered, you know better than I do. The old demon, who was fighting with the Fallen Leaves Hall masters, suddenly laughed and whispered, do you really think the little lord cares about the inheritance war? The patriarch of the Yang family is nothing but a fart. If it weren't for the fact that he had so many things to worry about here, he would have already left. What did you say? A master from the Fallen Leaves Hall who was fighting with the old demon couldn't help asking curiously when he saw him muttering to himself. The old demon grinned, revealing a mouthful of white fangs. I said, you're dead. This sentence seemed to have an infinite demonic power, bringing with it a deathly aura that rushed into the master's mind. In the next moment, his movements came to a halt, his eyes going blank, his face suddenly becoming pale as he muttered, I'm dead, idiot. The old demon coldly snorted, taking advantage of the other's dazed state to plunge his hand into his opponent's chest, and after taking it out again he was holding a heart that was still beating fiercely. Blood spurted out from the man's chest like a tide. The old demon's expression became more and more ferocious as he stared towards the place with the largest number of enemies and shouted, Blood sea sealing the heavens. A blood-red light shot out from behind him and the ground around him instantly became viscous, as if it was made of blood. All kinds of gloomy auras filled the air and in this blood swamp, everyone's movements couldn't help slowing down. Exn Ro's expression became horrified while Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, and Meng Shanyi were all shocked. Even Lu Qingyao's face showed a deep sense of dread. The old demon's cruel methods were not something most people could understand and accept. Before this, none of them had any idea that there was someone in this world who cultivated such an evil martial skill secret art. Smelling the thick bloody aura, Exn Ro couldn't help wanting to vomit. The old demon's powerful attack instantly captured more than a dozen Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters and sealed them in a sea of blood, unable to advance or retreat. How is this possible? After watching the battle for a while, Gao Rangfeng couldn't help calling out. He found that even though the 7 super families had gathered more than 100 Immortal Ascension Boundary 6-stage masters, they still weren't able to quickly defeat the cultivator from Yang Kai's mansion. Although Yang Kai's mansion's Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, they were still able to put up a good fight. After carefully observing for a while, Gao Rangfeng suddenly realized something. Yang Kai's blood warriors? When did they all reach the Immortal Ascension Boundary 9th stage? This sentence also surprised the others, but when they looked closely they found that this was indeed the case. 9 blood warriors, 9 Immortal Ascension Boundary 9th stage masters. When Yang Kai broke through to the Immortal Ascension Boundary a few days ago, there were still 4 Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage masters, but now, after only 10 days they had all broken through. An Immortal Ascension Boundary 9th stage blood warrior, after using his Mad Tyrant blood skill, would be able to exchange a few blows with an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master. Although the masters from the 7 great families were also very powerful, how could they be their opponents in a one-on-one battle? Even if they joined forces they wouldn't necessarily be able to win. It could be said that the reason why Yang Kai's mansion was able to survive was largely due to the efforts of the 9 blood warriors. They still have a peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Master who hasn't fought yet. Lu Qingyao suddenly said lightly, causing everyone's heart to tighten. Chapter 548. Yes, what about that master who called himself Meng Wuya? Even now he hadn't taken action. Why hadn't he taken action? Was it because he disdained to do so, or was it because he wasn't here? A long night is fraught with dreams. Kang Zhan's brow wrinkled, he had a bad feeling about this. Perhaps Yang Kai injuring him last time had left a psychological shadow in his heart. In any case, as long as Kang Zhan thought of Yang Kai, he couldn't help feeling terrified. Gao Rangfeng nodded gently. Over the past few months of the Inheritance War, Gao Rangfeng had accompanied Yang Zhao and fought with Yang Kai many times. Every time, Yang Kai's house would exceed everyone's expectations, creating some unimaginable achievements and brilliance. This time, it seemed that the 7 great families were in control of Yang Kai's forces, but who knew what kind of unexpected change would occur in the end? Miracles were nothing new in Yang Kai's forces. I'll go help. Hua Xing's eyes darted around and without waiting for Exn Ro to respond, he rushed over. Exn Ro's beautiful eyes flashed as she coldly snorted, surprisingly not stopping him. I'll go meet the little lord. Lu Qingyao stepped forward. This time Exn Ro couldn't remain calm and quickly said, Young Lord Lu, you're not his? Before she could finish her words though, she swallowed them back down because Lu Qingyao was staring at her with a cold gaze. Although she was now nominally the person in charge of the 7-family coalition and didn't take Gao Rangfeng or Kang Zhan seriously, using Yang Kai's name to act arbitrarily, she still felt an instinctive fear towards Lu Qingyao. This was a mark left behind by living in the shadow of the central capital's first young lord. Exn Ro wanted to say that Lu Qingyao wasn't Yang Kai's opponent, but this sentence would naturally offend him. During the battle at Pijing Lake, I said that when the little lord broke through to the Immortal Ascension Boundary, I would fight him again. Now is the time, whoever dares to stop me, don't blame me for being impolite. Lu Qingyao said faintly. Exn Ro squeezed out a smile and softly said, Then young Lord Lu, please be careful. I wish you victory and defeat Yang Kai. Below them, Stars had already rushed to the outside of Yang Kai's mansion, smiling as he greeted a group of young leaders outside the mansion. Everyone glared at him. These people did not understand how the situation had developed to this point. Stars' family had also participated in the attack on Yang Kai's government tonight. Naturally, they were not happy about it. Stars didn't care and instead stared at Dong Qinghan and said, Fatty, get out here, young master has long since found you displeasing. You're as fat as a pig, yet you're still pretending to be elegant and unrestrained. How can you even compare to 1/10,000th of this young master's elegance? What did you say? Dong Qinghan's expression went cold as he glared at Huixing. If you're not deaf, you should have heard it. Stars Hua tilted her head, looking sloppy. Dong Qinghan chuckled lightly, the muscles on his slightly chubby face twitching slightly as he stepped forward, cracking his knuckles as he did so. That's right. Huixing laughed. A trivial young lord from a first-class family dares to associate himself with an evil creature like Yang Kai? Just watch how this young master cripples you today. Saying so, he turned to the others and sneered, and you idiots, if you don't want to die young, leave Yang Kai as soon as possible and scram as far as you can. Everyone's expression became extremely ugly. If you don't accept it, then come and fight young master. This young master will wait here. Huixing sneered. Han Shaoqi stared at him blankly, her brow furrowed, suddenly shouting, teach him a lesson, let this superior young lord know that we are not to be trifled with. The next moment, more than a dozen people rushed to Huixing's side and began beating him. After a dozen breaths of time, Huixing was picked up by Dong Qinghan like a dead pig and thrown into Yang Kai's mansion, shouting to his subordinates, strip him of his clothes and throw him into the cellar for a few days. He dares to call me fat? Seeing this scene, Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, and the others all wore strange looks, a very uncomfortable feeling rising in their hearts. Young Lord Hua was captured alive. What should we do? Meng Shani suddenly said with a smile. Clumsy trick. Yi Xenro coldly snorted, not caring. It didn't matter whether Huixing was here or not, as long as the masters of the Hua family were here, it was fine. While Huixing was being captured, Lu Qingyao also came to Yang Kai. Last time at Pijing Lake, I was unable to enjoy myself to the fullest, so today I came here specifically to ask Little Lord for advice. I hope Little Lord can fulfill my wish. Lu Qingyao's expression was indifferent as he looked towards Yang Kai and said softly. Yang Kai nodded slightly. Please forgive me, young Lord Lu, I'm in a hurry, please hurry. Lu Qingyao also nodded, expressing his understanding, no longer saying anything. In the next moment, his aura suddenly erupted as his yuan qi surged violently. He gently took a step forward, and a muffled thump resounded between heaven and earth. Lu family's 9 winding steps. Last time at Pijing Lake, Lu Qingyao had used this move to fight Yang Kai. This was one of the Lu family's secret arts, a mysterious grade mid-rank secret art, and Lu Qinyao's most powerful move. However, this time was different from the last time. Last time, because of the absolute suppression in terms of cultivation, Lu Qingyao had held back when he used this move, not wanting to have an unfair advantage. But this time Lu Qingyao was going all out, his momentum far stronger than it had been back at Pijing Lake. Dong. Another step forward, accompanied by a rumbling sound like that of a war drum, shaking everyone's eardrums, causing their hearts to throb and their bodies to tremble. Dong dong dong. Lu Qinyao's figure seemed to grow larger and more majestic. By the time he took his 9th step, Lu Qinyao's entire body had become a giant monster. His head held up the sky while his feet stepped on the ground, like a giant, as if this world was being supported by him. 9 steps, heaven and earth destroyed. This was the Lu family's 9 tuned steps. By the time he took his 9th step, Lu Qinyao's aura had reached its peak, not far from that of a peak immortal ascension boundary master. Lu Qinyao's giant foot steadily and slowly stomped down towards Yang Kai. Everyone involuntarily had the illusion that this foot would step on their bodies and crush them into powder. Some of the weaker martial artists couldn't help but shiver, their faces pale with fear. Facing such a terrifying blow, Yang Kai simply swung his fist upwards. This seemingly ordinary, straightforward punch actually contained a devastating amount of energy. The tip of Lu Qinyao's fist collided with the giant foot, and in that instant, it was as if a myriad of afterimages had appeared. As soon as Lu Qinyao's momentum collapsed, the giant figure suddenly became sluggish and fell backwards. Hong. With a loud bang, the giant fell to the ground, disappearing into specks of light. Lu Qinyao, who was standing mid-air, suddenly let out a grunt and coughed up a mouthful of blood, clutching his chest as he staggered backwards, staring towards Yang Kai in horror. Thank you for letting me win. Yang Kai took a deep breath. Fierce. Lu Qinyao sincerely praised. This Lu has lost, many thanks little lord for showing mercy. Last time at Pijing Lake, when Lu Qinyao used this move, Yang Kai had to use the same mysterious grade martial skill, Star Mark, to resist. But this time, with just a casual punch, Lu Qinyao had easily broken the Lu family's secret martial skill. The difference in strength between the two was obvious at a glance. Young Lord Lu is too polite. Yang Kai nodded lightly. Although I lost, I cannot make decisions here, so I hope little lord can forgive me. All I can say is that this time, this Lu will not intervene again. Farewell. Saying so, Lu Qingyao's figure flashed like lightning and quickly disappeared into the night sky. Young lord, young lord. When the Lu family masters saw Lu Qingyao leave just like that, they were shocked and hurriedly called out. However, they received no response. Exenro's face became extremely pale. In just a short 2 hours, 3 young masters and young mistresses had withdrawn from the competition. Qiu Yimeng's withdrawal was caused by her, and it could even be said that she had deliberately allowed this to happen. When Huastars withdrew, she didn't stop them, nor did she care. In any case, although this person's body was here, his heart was in Yang Kai's house, so there was no point in him staying. It was better to leave early so as not to become an eyesore. However, Lu Qingyao actually leaving like this was not something Exenro could accept. After all, Lu Qingyao held the title of the Central Capital's first young lord. His principles could influence many things to a certain extent, such as public opinion. Lu Qingyao still had some prestige in the eyes of the world. How could Exenro not be annoyed? Now there were only 3 people left on her side. Kang Zhan, Gao Rangfeng and Meng Shanyi. Whether or not these 3 were of the same mind as her, she wasn't sure. Kang Zhan and Gao Rangfeng weren't so bad, but Meng Shanyi was more difficult to understand. You won't also withdraw, right? Exenro took precautions, turning her head and glancing at the 3 of them. Sister Yi worries too much. Kang Zhan shook his head. This time it was the will of the 8 great families. How could we withdraw so hastily? If we really did that, it would be too irresponsible. Gao Rangfeng also nodded in agreement. Although they also had some sympathy for Yang Kai's current situation, in the end they weren't familiar with Yang Kai, so they weren't in the mood to care too much. All they needed to do was act according to the will of their families. Seeing them express their stance, Exenro's brow furrowed slightly as she nodded. Then Sister Yi can rest assured. In such a big scene, Sister Yi will not be able to handle it alone. I will need the assistance of several elder brothers. She couldn't help lowering her posture, completely different from her previous performance in Yang Zhao's house. Qiu Yimeng, Huixing, and Lu Qingyao withdrawing one after another had affected the mentality of the masters from these 3 families. With their own young lord and young lady not here, these masters couldn't help feeling like they were making a wedding dress for someone else, so they couldn't help lowering their guard and trying to protect themselves. This was especially true for the masters from the Qiu family. They had been the vanguard and had suffered the most losses, so how could they be willing to go all out now? Since the arrival of reinforcements, they had been waiting on the sidelines, never confronting the enemy head-on. These masters were all extremely shrewd, so how could they be willing to do something that would cause them to suffer a loss? The 7 great families coalition appeared to be a solid block of iron, but in fact, it was full of flaws and loopholes, making it somewhat laughable. Chapter 549. The intense battle continued. The losses of the 7 family coalition were getting heavier and heavier. The 9 Immortal Ascension Boundary 9th Stage Blood Warriors who had used their Mad Tyrant blood skill had become their biggest obstacle to defeating Yang Kai. Time and time again the bloody battle continued, but they were still unable to repel these 9 Blood Warriors. The 9 of them were divided into groups of 2, each of them capable of holding back an entire family's cultivator. As for Ingjiu, he was constantly guarding Yang Kai, purging any enemy who dared to approach him. Exenro, Gao Rangfeng, and the others' expressions all changed. Because the Blood Warriors were able to maintain their Mad Tyrant blood skill for a long time, according to the information they had received, the Yang family Blood Warriors' forbidden technique could only last for half an hour at most. However, even after this time had passed, the 9 Blood Warriors still didn't show any signs of exhaustion and instead fought more valiantly. It wasn't until this moment that everyone realized that there was a reason why the Yang family had stood at the head of the 8 great families for so many years. Although they were all masters from super families, the 7 family coalition couldn't do anything to these 9 Blood Warriors, making them both anxious and angry. In the middle of the battle, Yang Kai was also constantly observing the situation. Although the 9 Blood Warriors were incomparably fierce and Old Demon was no pushover, the number of Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters in the mansion was decreasing. The reduction of these people's numbers would greatly affect the outcome of the battle. Ling Tai-su and Meng Wuya hadn't taken action yet. Yang Kai could understand because once the 2 of them took action, the situation could develop to a point of no return. In War City there were more than just these 2 top masters. Yang Kai didn't approve of the two of them taking action now. These two were more suitable as deterrents. In this battle until the end, no one knew what the result would be. A white figure flashed from the side and Yang Kai felt a familiar aura, quickly retreating to join up with her. Turning his head, Yang Kai saw Su Yan rushing over. "Qiu Yimeng is fine, she's resting," Su Yan said softly. Yang Kai nodded. "I'll help you." "All right." Su Yan originally didn't intend to participate in this battle, but the other side had too many people on their side and Yang Kai had already made it clear that this was no longer the inheritance war, so how could she just sit still? After settling Qiu Yimeng down, he immediately came to her aid. Along with him were the 4 elders of High Heaven Pavilion. The strength of these 4 people was not bad. After joining the battle, they immediately gained some advantages. The mysterious grade mid-rank mirror artifact was taken out by Su Yan, and a bone-chilling cold instantly spread out as she poured her yuan qi into it. Towering snow-white peaks began to appear on the mirror's surface, and the world inside the mirror was covered in a thick layer of silver, giving off a chilling aura. Rays of light blossomed, and a huge barrier suddenly enveloped the 7 families' experts. Kang Zhan's eyes suddenly trembled as he exclaimed, "It's that artifact." 10 days ago, 4 peak immortal ascension boundary masters from the Nan family and Xiang family had been trapped by this artifact and frozen into ice sculptures. Now seeing this scene again, Kang Zhan suddenly felt terrified. "What's so special about this artifact?" Yi Xianro quickly asked. Kang Zhan's expression became dignified as he explained everything he knew. Listening to his story, Yi Xianro's pretty face also paled. Nearby, Gao Rangfeng and Meng Shanyi also wore cold expressions. Such a powerful artifact, who could break it? As they spoke, the barrier covering the ground suddenly shattered and 2 figures walked out. Everyone stared at them and sure enough, these 2 people were Yang Kai and Su Yan. As for the experts who had been shrouded in the enchantment, they had all turned into ice sculptures at this moment. They stood there quietly in all kinds of strange poses. It was unknown whether they were still alive. From beginning to end, only half a cup of tea worth of time had passed. But this was not the end. Su Yan, who had just dealt with a dozen masters, once again poured her yuan qi into the mirror, and under the horrified gazes of Yi Xianro and the others, a similar barrier appeared. This time, more than a dozen people were enveloped in it. "Impossible!" Yi Xianro screamed. "Such an artifact consumes an incredible amount of yuan qi. Even if she's an immortal ascension boundary master, it's impossible for her to use it twice in a row." With Su Yan's own ability, it was impossible for her to use it twice in a row. If she really did so, it was likely she would exhaust all of her yuan qi, and even if she could trap her enemies, she wouldn't be able to do anything to them. In the end, she might even be captured by her enemies inside the barrier. However, she still had Yang Kai by her side, and the 2 of them cultivated the yin-yang joyous unification art. Yuan qi was constantly circulating around their bodies. This level of consumption was something Su Yan could afford. A burst of uneasiness rose in Yi Xianro's heart. Relying on this mysterious great artifact alone, Yang Kai and Su Yan could deal with most of their opponents. If they allowed her to use it a few more times, who would be left? Just as she was panicking, the barrier broke a second time and more than a dozen people were frozen into ice sculptures. Hua. The light once again bloomed, and the masters from the 7 families who couldn't avoid it were enveloped by the mirror barrier for the 3rd time. Yi Xianro finally panicked, her expression becoming ugly as her thoughts raced, but she couldn't think of an effective way to break this barrier. For the first time, she felt a deep sense of powerlessness and couldn't help thinking that if the 2nd young lord was here, with his temperament and means, he might have been able to come up with a way to restrain this move. Although this move was simple and monotonous, it was very effective, at least against the 7 family coalition. Enough! An angry roar suddenly sounded from the void, bringing with it endless majesty. Everyone who heard this roar involuntarily stopped what they were doing. A terrifying pressure was born. Looking in the direction of the pressure, everyone discovered that in the void, there was a huge palm print that seemed both real and illusory. This palm print slowly descended, its target being the barrier created by Su Yan's artifact. Pung. The palm print slammed into the barrier, causing the ground to tremble and everyone to lose their footing. With a loud crash, the seemingly impregnable barrier shattered like a broken mirror, revealing the figures inside. Yang Kai and Su Yan both let out a muffled groan at the same time, their faces suddenly going pale. The mirror artifact could be said to be shared by the 2 of them. It had been refined by Yang Kai and was now being used by Su Yan, so having the barrier forcibly broken had caused some damage to both of them. Some of the masters who had just been enveloped by the barrier saw this scene and felt as if they had been saved from a desperate situation, joy filling their faces as they quickly fled. They didn't want to be frozen into ice sculptures. Seeing this scene, Yi Xinruo's face couldn't help showing a look of joy while Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, and the others all opened their mouths wide as they stared towards the sky. There, 8 figures appeared at the same time. These were the 8 above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters who had been sitting in the Seal Temple all this time. All 8 of them stared at Su Yan and Yang Kai with different expressions, some showing surprise, some shock, and some fear. Yang Kai raised his head and stared at them coldly. The appearance of these 8 people was both Yang Kai's expectation and Yang Kai's surprise. One of them slowly retracted his raised hand. He was the one who had slapped out that huge handprint. Yang Kai deliberately glanced at him and suddenly remembered that this person was one of the top masters who didn't like him before. Old ancestor. Yi Xinruo called out happily. The old man nodded gently to her. Gao Rangfeng, Kang Zhan, Meng Shani, and the others quickly bowed. After more than 10 days, 8 above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters had appeared once again. What their purpose was self-evident, causing all of them to feel both relieved and somewhat ashamed. If the 7 Family Coalition had been able to destroy Yang Kai's mansion, there would have been no need to provoke these 8 people. They probably also realized that with the current strength of the 7 Family Cultivator, there was no way they could deal with Yang Kai's mansion, so they had no choice but to appear. This was also the result of Yi Xinruo's improper deployment, otherwise such a situation would not have occurred. Yang family little brat. The square-faced above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master stared at Yang Kai solemnly and said, "Last time we didn't cripple you on the spot because you were a young lord of the central capital and gave you a chance to turn over a new leaf. Now, not only have you not shown any signs of repentance, you have instead become even worse, even allowing your subordinates to kill my 8 great family's masters. Do you want a rebel?" Yang Kai took a deep breath, calming the tumbling blood in his chest and said loudly, "With a blade pressed against my neck, should I just die or resist? If it were senior, what would you have done? If you hadn't done anything wrong, how could my 8 great families treat you like this? How could your Yang family not care about you? Fools make mistakes and remain stubborn. I don't think I've done anything wrong." Yang Kai stared at him coldly. "If you're worried that after I die, I'll become a monster like the Demon Lord, I'll forfeit this inheritance war and not compete for the position of Yang family patriarch. You don't need to worry. The 8 great families will not allow a black sheep like you to appear. Your existence is a stain on the Yang family and a stain on the 8 great families," the man coldly declared. "In the end, you want me to submit?" Yang Kai sneered, "Sorry, I'm a bit of a cheap man. I can be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force. If you want to talk things over with me, then we can all talk, but if you insist, then we'll fight to the death. Neither of us will be able to win." Impudence. The square-faced master coldly shouted, "You don't have the qualifications today. No matter who it is, they won't be able to protect you. Brother, you're already so old, yet you're still competing with a junior. Isn't that a bit inappropriate?" A light voice suddenly sounded and 2 figures flew out from Yang Kai's house. It was Meng Wuya and Ling Taisu. Meng Wuya smiled indifferently and said, "This is a child's business. We don't need to intervene, right?" Meng Wuya. The square-faced master stared deeply at Treasurer Meng, his expression unchanged as if he had long known that Treasurer Meng and Ling Taisu would appear. "I don't know what secrets you're hiding, but you alone aren't qualified to stop my 8 great families." When Yang Kai broke through to the Immortal Ascension boundary last time, the masters from the 8 great families had also been provoked, but at that time they hadn't acted against Yang Kai. Firstly, it was because Yang Kai was still under their control, so there was no need to shed all pretense of cordiality. Secondly, it was because Yang Kai had Meng Wuya and Ling Taisu by his side. Chapter 550. Meng Wuya was shrouded in a mysterious aura, but Ling Taisu was an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master. Once an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master fought, it was no laughing matter. "I'm not qualified, haha." Meng Wuya laughed, his expression calm. "Not to mention me, even that guy down there, in a one-on-one fight, none of you are his opponent." Saying so, he gestured towards the old demon down below. The old demon grinned fiercely, his expression terrifying. "Him?" The square-faced master's heart trembled, but a look of surprise appeared on his face as he slowly shook his head. "He's nothing." As he spoke, his face filled with contempt and disdain. Not only did he have such an expression, many of the 8 great families above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters had similar expressions. All of them secretly felt that this Meng Wuya was a bit senile, actually daring to say such a thing. Old Demon, Meng Wuya, and Ling Taisu. Of these 3, the one these 8 feared the most was Ling Taisu. This Ling Taisu was an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master, and his cultivation was much higher than theirs. What's more, he was the one who had cultivated the Demon Lord. Next was Meng Wuya. Although Treasurer Meng was a peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Master, these 8 couldn't see through him. Towards someone they couldn't see through, it was natural for them to be suspicious of him. As for the old demon, although he was also a peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Master like Meng Wuya, they didn't put him in their eyes. Such a martial artist, they could kill him as and when they wanted. Last time Yang Li Ting had killed the old demon's blood demon puppet with a single palm strike, but he hadn't dared to resist, so it was obvious that this demon lord wasn't much of a threat. Hearing the square-faced master's sarcasm, Meng Wuya couldn't help laughing. "Old demon, I'm looking down on you, what do you do? If they look down on me, then they look down on me, what's there to say?" The old demon laughed strangely, not showing the slightest trace of anger, his expression light and indifferent, as if he didn't care at all. "Can you still endure?" Meng Wuya looked at the old demon with a smile. "With your brutal nature, shouldn't you teach this group of short-sighted fools a lesson? You said that they are short-sighted, so why should this old man lower himself to their level?" The old demon grinned as he continued to spout nonsense with Meng Wuya, completely ignoring the 8 above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters. Everyone's mood became subtle. Listening to these words, it seemed that this old devil's methods were truly unfathomable, not even putting an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master in his eyes. Did he have the ability to do so? Was he qualified? While everyone was puzzled, the old demon's expression suddenly turned solemn and he said indifferently, "Although this old master doesn't want to lower himself to their level, if this old master doesn't do anything, I'm afraid they will look down on me. This move is very exhausting to use, so this old master won't use it unless it is absolutely necessary." As he said this, the yuan qi rolling in his body suddenly quieted down and became as still as an ancient well, like a pool of stagnant water. Spectre Saint technique. A resounding roar suddenly burst out from the old demon's mouth, and along with this roar, the surrounding atmosphere suddenly became chaotic. At the same time, everyone felt their blood surge as if an unparalleled suction force was being exerted from the old demon's body, trying to draw out their blood. The weaker cultivator instantly wore pained expressions. Under this kind of suction force, their faces flushed red and blood began to flow from their 7 orifices, making for a horrifying sight. Even the Immortal Ascension Boundary cultivators had no choice but to use their secret arts to resist this suction. No one could escape unscathed. No one knew what kind of method the old demon had used to actually cause such an effect. Shio shio shio. A bright red light suddenly burst out from all directions and rushed into the old demon's body. These bloody lights were all condensed from fresh blood. This blood came from the dead cultivator. Whether it was the masters from the 7 Family Coalition or the cultivator from Yangkai Mansion, as long as they died, their blood would be sucked dry in a single breath. Even the blood that had seeped into the ground was sucked out by this huge suction force. The old demon's body absorbed all of this blood, leaving not a single drop behind, his entire body suddenly becoming red, like a roasted crab. From his body, a terrifying blood qi suddenly burst out, several times stronger than the Yang family blood warriors after using their mad tyrant blood skill. After all the blood within a 1,000-meter radius had been sucked dry, the suction force suddenly disappeared. All the cultivator below the Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage began bleeding from their 7 orifices, including those from Yangkai Mansion. However, none of these cultivators were in any life-threatening danger. The old demon still had a sense of propriety and wouldn't allow them to die for no reason. It wasn't until this moment that an earth-shattering aura burst out from the old demon's body. An invisible aura centered on him quickly spread outwards. His momentum continued to climb, breaking through the Immortal Ascension boundary at an incredible speed, but it still continued to climb. The eyes of the 8 masters from the 8 great families trembled violently as they stared at the scene in front of them, deeply shocked. A moment later, the earth-shattering movement slowly subsided. The old demon took a deep breath, still wearing a ferocious grin on his face as he stretched out his arms and legs, a look of satisfaction appearing on his face. The 8 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters were stunned, quickly releasing their divine senses to sweep the old demon's body and were immediately stunned. Above Immortal Ascension boundary. At this moment, the old demon was a genuine above immortal ascension boundary master. After recovering, the 8 masters realized something incredible. What kind of secret technique was this Demon Spectre Saint technique? What kind of secret technique was it? How could it allow a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator to reach the above immortal ascension boundary in such a short time? Even the Yang family's Blood Warrior Hall's Mad Tyrant blood skill couldn't have such an effect. Although Tu Feng and the other masters could exchange a few blows with an above immortal ascension boundary master when using their Mad Tyrant blood skill, they were still far from reaching that realm. The old demon had truly set foot on this great family's territory. In an instant, the 8 masters' breathing became rapid and their eyes became bloodshot. If they could obtain this kind of secret technique, just how much would their family's strength increase? Each of the 8 great families only had a few above immortal ascension boundary masters, but there were many peak immortal ascension boundary masters. Even if it was only a short time, this secret technique would have an irreplaceable effect. Is this old master qualified to exchange blows with you now? The old demon stared at the 8 masters with a gloomy expression. The 8 masters all wore a strange expression, none of them answering. The square-faced master who had cursed the old demon before had an even uglier expression on his face. He was also an above immortal ascension boundary master, so how could he dare to criticize the old demon now? Demon Spectre Saint technique, this one is quite good. Meng Wuya suddenly nodded gently. Is this secret technique complementary to the blood demon puppet you refined? The old demon grinned meaningfully. Don't expose me. Meng Wuya's insight was amazing, and at a glance he saw the subtle connection between the Demon Spectre Saint technique and the blood demon puppet. The Demon Spectre Saint technique required a lot of fresh blood to display, and the higher the strength of the cultivator, the greater the space for the old demon's own strength to improve. However, this condition was very problematic. It was impossible to have fresh blood for the old demon to use at all times. With the blood demon puppet, the situation was different. The biggest role of this puppet was to absorb the blood of the dead while its own combat strength was secondary. When the time came, old demon could sacrifice the blood demon puppet and use the blood demon's sacrifice and his own blood to display the Demon Spectre Saint technique. You have such an ability? Yang Kai also glanced over at the old demon in surprise. Although he had long known that the old demon was extraordinary and had secretly speculated about their strength, Yang Kai found that he had still underestimated them. Young master, please forgive me, old servant doesn't usually use this trick, so I haven't used it before, the old demon smiled. Yang Kai nodded lightly, not caring much about this. He wasn't curious enough to ask about other people's secrets. Saying so, he and the old demon both turned their eyes to Meng Wuya. Old man, don't just watch, I'm afraid this old master alone won't be enough to accomplish this, the old demon shouted. There were 8 of them on the other side, so they had an overwhelming advantage in terms of numbers. Although the old demon and Ling Tai Su were both very powerful, they couldn't force them to retreat. Meng Wuya nodded gently, only uttering a single word, release. Asterisk Kacha. Asterisk from Meng Wuya's body, a chain-like energy pattern appeared, wrapping around his body like a wriggling snake. With a single shout, this chain shattered, releasing a burst of light that spread out in all directions. An unparalleled pressure suddenly descended, causing the world to tremble. Meng Wuya's expression was indifferent, but compared to just a moment ago, he was like a completely different person. Above immortal ascension boundary. With just a single word, in an instant, Meng Wuya had broken through to the above immortal ascension boundary. What's more, his method was completely different from the old demon's. The old demon had used a secret technique to absorb all the blood within a 1,000-meter radius in order to increase his strength. Meng Wuya, on the other hand, seemed to have unlocked a seal in his body and restored his original strength. In other words, Meng Wuya's original cultivation was at the above immortal ascension boundary, but for some unknown reason he had sealed his strength. This discovery shocked the masters from the 8 great families. Looking at Meng Wuya again, the expressions of the 8 great families all changed. They couldn't see through Meng Wuya. He was so mysterious that they couldn't figure him out. At this moment, Meng Wuya gave them the greatest pressure, followed by the old demon, while Ling Tai Su, who was originally the strongest, had become the weakest link. Such a lineup, such a heritage. The situation had escalated. The 8 great families all wore strange expressions. They had thought that with the 8 of them stepping forward, they would be able to resolve the situation, but now they discovered that things were not as they had imagined. Only now did they understand why Ling Tai-su and Meng Wuya had been so confident in preventing them from interfering with Yang Kai's breakthrough 10 days ago. If they had really fought, not to mention whether or not they could stop Yang Kai, War City would likely have been destroyed. This fierce battle was full of twists and turns, causing everyone to be dumbfounded, their hearts filled with both excitement and nervousness. The old demon had entered, and now all of them had broken through to the above immortal ascension boundary. This kind of show was not something ordinary people could witness, so they couldn't help feeling that even if they died here it would be worth it. At the same time, they were secretly looking forward to how the situation would develop next. Chapter 551. In a trivial war city, 11 above immortal ascension boundary masters had gathered here. The development of the situation was now completely out of the control of both sides. At this time, no matter who it was impossible for either side to back down easily. The situation had already been set, so whichever side retreated would appear weak and cowardly. Ling Tai-su secretly sent a message to Yang Kai, warning him to be careful. Yang Kai remained silent, ordering the cultivator in his mansion to withdraw from the battle and gather together. At the same time, Yi Xenro was also making the same arrangements. A short time later, the two sides were clearly divided. High up in the sky, the 11 forces were facing each other while Yang Kai's mansion cultivator and the 7 family coalition were separated by 1,000 meters. Most of them were so nervous that they couldn't even breathe. Do you really want to fight? Meng Wuya stared at the 8 forces opposite him, reading this message from their eyes. Things have already reached this point, so let's just casually exchange some pointers. Among the 8 forces, a fat old man said lightly. He was one of those who had been quite optimistic about Yang Kai's chances and didn't want such a dispute to occur, but since things had turned out contrary to his wishes, he was helpless. After all, he was standing on the side of the 8 great families, so even if he was optimistic about Yang Kai, he couldn't do anything for him. Very well. Meng Wuya nodded gently, smiling as he stared forward. A group brawl, one-on-one, and a tag team battle, how do you want to play? Just draw a line and the 3 of us will follow suit. Among the 8 forces, several of them couldn't help coldly snorting, their expressions clearly displeased. Meng Wuya's words were too contemptuous, naturally causing them to be somewhat unhappy. The fat old man also calmly said, Your Excellency's tone is quite big. All of them were above immortal ascension boundary masters, all of them with high status. Normally they wouldn't fight with them, nor would they have the qualifications to fight with them. Today's battle seemed inevitable. If they really swarmed up and outnumbered the enemy, it wouldn't be good for them. Since they couldn't fight as a group, they could only fight one-on-one. None of them had any confidence in fighting one-on-one, so there was only one option left. However, none of them were fools. Naturally, they wouldn't directly answer Meng Wuya's question. Yang Liting suddenly took a step forward and said in a clear voice, Sect Master Ling, speaking of which, you and my Yang family are quite close. 2 generations of my Yang family's young lords have been cultivating under your tutelage and I am indebted to you for your care. Today this Yang has come to meet you and see what Sect Master Ling's methods are like. Ling Tai-su smiled faintly and said indifferently, That's fine too. Ever since I broke through, I have never fought with anyone of the same level. Brother Yang, please show mercy later. We'll stop when the time comes. Please. As soon as his voice fell, Ling Tai-su suddenly leapt up into the night sky, disappearing in an instant. A moment later, in the sky, a violent energy fluctuation spread out, and as far as the eye could see, one could even see bursts of light flashing. This was a battle between 2 above immortal ascension boundary masters, but not many people were lucky enough to witness it. Brother Yang is still impatient. The fat old man shook his head slightly and smiled bitterly before suddenly turning to stare at Meng Wuya and saying, Brother Meng, let's also go up. As he spoke, his figure flashed, and he disappeared into the night sky, wrapped in a green light. Meng Wuya followed closely behind. Old demon, this old master will meet you. Another man stepped forward and pointed to the old demon and shouted. The old demon snickered, Ling Tai-su and Meng Wuya have both gone up, so this old master won't go. If I leave, who will protect the young master? The fat old man angrily shouted, What do you mean by that? Do you think we'll take advantage of the fact that you 3 aren't here to attack a junior? Isn't that what you're planning? The old demon squinted at him and asked sarcastically. The fat old man was furious and shouted back, If you think so, then you're looking down on this old master too much. We aren't shameless to such an extent. The old demon snickered, Who knows what you're thinking? He looked like he was determined to stay here even if he had to die. Obviously he was also worried about the problem he mentioned before. The old demon didn't accept the challenge and the fat old man's face immediately turned ashen. The remaining top experts also had ugly expressions as they glared at the old demon, their yuan qi fluctuating. Fine, I believe you're all honorable and upright people. It's impossible for you to take advantage of our absence to harm the young master. The old demon snickered and deliberately spoke in a loud voice. Although he also felt that these people wouldn't do such a thing with their status, it was still necessary to guard against them. The old demon was still somewhat vigilant. But if he didn't accept the challenge at this time, it would only worsen the situation. He had no choice but to take action. Young master, you must be careful. Don't be careless. The old demon whispered and turned into a bloody light that shot into the sky. His voice came from afar. Come up, this old master will wait for you. The man who had just been talking to the old demon quickly leapt up. The 6 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters were fighting in the sky several thousand meters above the ground. Everyone couldn't help but raise their heads and watch, but even though everyone's strength wasn't low and their eyesight was much better than Chang Jin's, they couldn't see much. Yang Kai could only vaguely sense some of the mysteries in the sky. These were the 6 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters' understandings of the martial Tao and the heavenly way. If one could absorb and digest these things, it would be of great help to any cultivator. While paying close attention, Yang Kai silently sensed these mysteries in his mind, memorizing them and waiting for the day when he would be able to fully understand them. The battle seemed to be getting more and more intense. The light in the sky was also as bright as day, dazzling and piercing to the eyes. Only in that space where the light bloomed, the crowd seemed to see some figures flying back and forth. As for how they attacked and what kind of moves they used, no one knew. Many of the more intelligent individuals quietly observed the expressions of the remaining experts from the 8 great families, and were surprised to find that they all had nervous and helpless expressions on their faces. Immediately, they realized that the 8 great families seemed to be at a disadvantage in this battle. This discovery startled many of them. The 8 great families of the Seal Temple had always been regarded as the representatives of the world's strongest, but now, compared with the 3 from Yang Kai's mansion, the difference between them was obvious. The above Immortal Ascension boundary was a realm full of secrets. Until one reached this step, no one knew what it was like. Even Tu Feng only had a vague understanding of the above Immortal Ascension boundary. So, after learning that the 8 great families above Immortal Ascension boundary masters were at a disadvantage, everyone was shocked by the strength displayed by Ling Tai Su's trio. Meng Wuya and the old demon had clearly just reached this level using different methods. Ling Tai Su had only broken through to this realm a little over a year ago, but they were actually more powerful than the top masters from the 8 great families. Each of those masters had broken through to the above Immortal Ascension boundary at least 50 years ago. Could it be that 50 years of bitter cultivation wasn't as good as a single instant breakthrough? What kind of realm was the above Immortal Ascension boundary? Just as everyone was wondering, the battle high up in the sky seemed to have reached a conclusion. A moment later, 2 figures flew down, Meng Wuya and his opponent. Meng Wuya's expression was calm, but his opponent's face was pale, and although he was unwilling, he still cupped his fists towards Meng Wuya and said, "Thank you for your advice. Thank you for letting me win." Meng Wuya nodded gently. Neither of them had any injuries or traces of battle, which meant that either they had been peacefully exchanging pointers or the gap in strength between them was too great. The former possibility was unlikely. Just now, when everyone was talking, the smell of gunpowder was thick, so even if it wasn't a life or death struggle, it wouldn't have been too peaceful. As for the latter possibility, no one dared to think about it. After a while, Ling Tai Su and Yang Li Ting also flew down, both of them somewhat out of breath as they stared at each other. Sect Master Ling's skill is truly amazing, this Yang has lost. Yang Li Ting dropped a few words before walking back to his seat. The audience was in an uproar. Meng Wuya, Ling Tai Su, these 8 great families' ancestors were actually no match for these 2 from Yang Kai's mansion. What about the other battle? Just as everyone was about to look up, they suddenly heard the sound of something heavy falling from the sky. Before anyone could react, a loud bang rang out, as if something had fallen from the sky and smashed into the ground, creating a deep crater. Dust flew everywhere, and when the dust settled, everyone couldn't help but be flabbergasted. They found that the master who had previously challenged Shui Mo was standing in place with a pale expression on his face. Beside his feet was a large crater that had been created by him, and from the corner of his mouth there was a trace of blood, seemingly having suffered some injuries. Old Demon stood several dozen meters above the ground, looking down at his opponent, grinning. Sorry, this old master's attacks aren't light or heavy, unlike Sect Master Ling and Meng Wuya who can control their strength. That young man glanced up at the old demon but didn't say anything, quickly walking back to his own camp, sitting down cross-legged and circulating his secret art. A moment later he opened his mouth and spat out a red and black aura. This aura was extremely strange and evil, so it should have been injected into his body by the old demon. 3 matches, all defeat. The audience was in an uproar as everyone's eyes flashed with disbelief. The 8 great families above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters were actually so weak? All of them stood at the pinnacle of the martial Tao. Come again. Looking at your posture, if I don't beat you until you're convinced today's matter won't be over, the old demon smiled grimly. It seemed like the old demon was provoking them, but in fact, everyone knew that since the 8 great families' top masters had been dispatched, they would definitely finish what they started. After losing 3 there were still 5 to go. Everyone had a tacit understanding. In response to the old demon's words, 3 of them stepped forward. Ling Tai-su sighed, exchanging a helpless glance with Meng Wuya before flying up for the second time. The fierce battle between the above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters once again began. At this time, the masters from the 7 family coalition couldn't help praying silently that these 3 wouldn't be completely defeated like before. For a long time, the 8 great families of the Seal Temple had been the object of worship for many people. If all of them were defeated, the prestige of the 8 great families would likely collapse. Chapter 552. The 7 family coalition's Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters all held their breaths as they secretly watched the battle in the sky. The 2 above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters who had yet to appear were also paying close attention. Brother Hua, that Meng Wuya, how strong is he? The square-faced master whispered to the fat old man. Although he had also watched the entire battle just now, it wasn't as profound as the fat old man's. The fat old man from the Hua family sighed slightly and said with a wry smile, "Please forgive me for using the word unfathomable to describe him." The square-faced old man was startled and stared at the fat old man in shock. The fat old man shook his head and said, "It's not that I want to belittle myself, but I have lived for many years and have studied the above Immortal Ascension Boundary for many years. I have a unique understanding of the martial Tao and the heavenly way, but I have never seen someone like him. Let me put it this way, one-on-one, even if we were to fight him one after another, he could still defeat all 8 of us." What? The square-faced old man paled. Although he knew that Meng Wuya wasn't an easy character to deal with, this evaluation was still too high, but since it came from the fat old man's mouth, it was absolutely correct. Everyone had been together for so many years and understood each other's characters very well. It was impossible for the fat old man from the Hua family to exaggerate. That demon lord is also extraordinary. The opponent whom the old demon had defeated before slowly opened his eyes and said, "Even if he isn't as strong as Meng Wuya, he's still not someone we can deal with." The fat old man's eyes were slightly confused as he murmured, "And I always feel that these 2 people aren't on the same level as us." What do you mean? How could they not be on the same level? Aren't they also above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters? I can't say for sure. The fat old man frowned, secretly comparing himself with Meng Wuya. He always felt that this man was standing high above the clouds, overlooking him, a height he could never reach. So Ling Tai-su is the most normal. Yang Li-ting interjected. Although Ling Tai-su's cultivation is similar to ours, his secret art and moves are similar to Meng Wuya's. It's probably because the 2 of them have discussed the martial Tao for so many years in High Heaven Pavilion and learned a lot from Meng Wuya. Judging from his performance, he should only be able to win 2 matches before exhausting himself. 2 wins. The square-faced old man's face darkened. Then won't we all lose? The other side had 3 people while his side had 8. Even if Ling Tai-su only appeared twice with Meng Wuya and Old Demon's methods, they could easily deal with the rest. Even if he could only win a single match, it would still be good, but such a simple idea had become an extravagant hope for an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master. The 5 of them looked defeated. They were helpless and powerless to do anything. These people used to sit in the Seal Temple as grand elders of the 8 great families. They were all above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters who were worshipped by the world, believing that even if there was someone stronger than them in this world, they couldn't be much stronger. It wasn't until today that they realized just how incompetent they were. A frog sitting in a well, looking at the sky as if it were a well. Yang Liting's eyes were deep as he muttered, his words echoing the thoughts of everyone present. Brother Yi, whether you encounter Meng Wuya or the old demon, you must be careful. Meng Wuya is a bit better, holding back his strength, but the old demon's methods are cruel. The man who had been injured by the old demon before warned, Brother Lu as well, you must not be injured by his demonic qi. This demonic qi is very difficult to resolve. As he spoke, his face paled and he hurriedly circulated his secret art, obviously not completely recovering. The two top masters from the Yi and Lu families who were warned nodded slightly. The square-faced old man from the Yi family wore a dignified expression as he suddenly turned his head and glanced over at Yang Kai. Yang Kai was also paying attention to the fierce battle in the sky at this moment, comprehending the various concepts that were being transmitted from the sky, seemingly intoxicated. Suddenly, a rather discordant feeling arose in his heart. Yang Kai suddenly became alert and hurriedly became vigilant, only feeling a faint chill pass over his body, but after carefully examining himself, he couldn't find anything. Frowning, Yang Kai glanced over at the top masters from the 8 great families and happened to meet the eyes of the square-faced old man from the Yi family. The old man remained expressionless and slowly turned his gaze away. Little Lord. Tang Yuxian found that Yang Kai's expression was strange and quickly asked, "What's wrong?" "It's nothing." Yang Kai shook his head, "It's probably just an illusion." Tang Yuxian saw that he was fine and no longer asked. Glancing over at the square-faced old man, Yang Kai's brow furrowed. Although he didn't notice anything wrong with himself, the discordant feeling he had just felt was not fake. Beasts had instincts, as a cultivator he also had instincts, and to some extent, a cultivator's instincts were more accurate and sensitive than a beast's. Just now, the square-faced old man either wanted to harm him or had already done so, which was why Yang Kai was able to sense it. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, did he want to find a way to break through? Yang Kai's face was gloomy as he sneered in his heart. He didn't dare act carelessly. If an above immortal ascension boundary master wanted to attack him, it was normal for him not to notice. Gently taking a deep breath, Yang Kai closed his eyes and used his powerful spiritual energy to examine himself, but he didn't find the slightest abnormality. His divine sense entered his knowledge sea and Yang Kai's soul avatar floated above the vast sea, looking around. His knowledge sea was peaceful, with a variety of fish swimming freely in the water and birds constantly flying through the sky. These fish and birds all carried Yang Kai's memories and spiritual energy. At the center of his knowledge sea, there was a 5-colored island that stood quietly like a mountain of treasures. Floating above this island was a small sword and an oblate object of unknown use. The 5-colored island was transformed from the soul-warming lotus. The small sword was Yang Kai's soul-type artifact, and the oblate object was the treasure he had obtained from the 7th page of the Black Book. However, so far Yang Kai didn't know what it was used for. Since he obtained it, it had settled down in his knowledge sea and hadn't provided him with any help in terms of strength, nor did it cause him any harm. As the drizzle continued, the scenery in his knowledge sea was like a paradise, beautiful and unforgettable. Am I being paranoid? Yang Kai pondered. The other party hadn't taken any action against him? After all, the old demon had been worried about this problem before and had deliberately pointed it out. The other party had also said that it was impossible for them to take advantage of the absence of the old demon, Ling Taisu and Meng Wuya. Those people were all old ancestors of the 8 great families, so their words naturally carried some weight. With a smile, Yang Kai prepared to withdraw from his knowledge sea. At that moment though, Yang Kai's movements came to an abrupt halt and his eyes flashed a cold light as he stared coldly at his knowledge sea. After a while, he chuckled, "Interesting, I don't remember it ever raining in my knowledge sea." Everything in one's knowledge sea would change according to the ups and downs of a cultivator's mood. When one was happy there would be no clouds in the sky and the sun would shine brightly, but when one was unhappy there would be rain and waves. Yang Kai had thought that it was his mood that had caused this drizzle, but after thinking about it for a moment he felt that something was wrong. Trying to control it, he found that this drizzle had nothing to do with him. Since it had nothing to do with him, it must be someone else's doing. Get out here. Along with Yang Kai's roar, his calm knowledge sea suddenly churned with waves several dozen meters high, shooting up into the sky. Pillars of water, like flood dragons emerging from the sea, shot straight up into the sky. The drizzle seemed to suddenly stagnate for a moment, but under the impact of this boundless divine sense, it quickly came to a stop. A vague figure suddenly appeared not far in front of Yang Kai and stared towards Yang Kai with a dignified expression. I knew it was you. Yang Kai sneered and said sarcastically, What's wrong? Even the words of an above immortal ascension boundary master are like farts to you? The person opposite him was the sole avatar of the Yi family's square-faced old man. Since he had appeared tonight, he had been holding a grudge against Yang Kai and Yang Kai's people. This made Yang Kai very suspicious, wondering how he had offended this old man. Finally, after thinking about it, Yang Kai could only explain that this old man was helping Yi and Ro. After all, this old man was the old ancestor of the Yi family. A look of surprise appeared on the old man's face, as if he hadn't expected that his method would be seen through by Yang Kai. Nodding, he said, You really are good. With just an immortal ascension boundary second stage cultivation, you were able to break through this old master's soul skill. This old master's spring breeze drizzle has never failed before. Spring breeze drizzle, silent infiltration, was one of this old man's signature skills. As an above immortal ascension boundary master, using this move to deal with Yang Kai made him feel like he was using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, but not only did it not have any effect, it was even quickly seen through by the other party. Yang Kai snorted and stared at him coldly, not saying a word. Yang family little brat, how did you cultivate your knowledge, see? The old man asked in a deep voice. With your cultivation, it is impossible for you to have such a huge and pure spiritual energy. Although your spiritual energy is much worse than this old master's, it is still far beyond the level of a peak immortal ascension boundary master. Old dog, you didn't sneak into my knowledge sea just to ask this question, did you? Yang Kai looked at the old man sarcastically, not waiting for him to answer before continuing. Did you feel like you lost a lot of face this time and want to regain some face from me? The old man didn't care about Yang Kai's sarcasm and said indifferently, This old master was just curious about how you did it. Since you don't want to tell me, then I won't ask. There will always be a chance to figure it out. As for why this old master sneaked into your knowledge sea, naturally it was because he wanted to know some of your secrets. My secrets? Yang Kai froze for a moment before grinning, a method to quickly improve a cultivator's strength. Chapter 553. The old man spoke as if he was certain of Yang Kai's victory, revealing the intentions of the 7 great families and the Yang family without the slightest concealment. This was the reality of the situation. The reason why the Yang family had ignored Yang Kai and only sent Yang Zhen and several elders to negotiate with Yang Kai was because of this plan. In the eyes of the Yang family, since the 7 great families had set their sights on Yang Kai would definitely not be able to withstand the pressure and would willingly return to the Yang family to accept their protection, and the price would be the method to improve his cultivator's strength. A forcibly picked melon was not sweet, and the Yang family did not use force on Yang Kai for 2 reasons. First, they were afraid of Yang Kai's emotional backlash. Second, because Yang Kai had many masters in his house. And third, because the Yang family believed that as a member of the Yang family, he had to contribute everything to the Yang family. Offering the method to improve his cultivator's strength to the Yang family was a matter of course. However, returning to the Yang family would result in his cultivation being crippled, which was a consequence that Yang Kai could not accept. The 7 great families were taking advantage of the subtle contradiction between Yang Kai and the Yang family to stir up trouble. Being able to capture Yang Kai alive in this battle was of course the best scenario, and this was also the scene they hoped to see. At that time, the 7 great families could discuss with the Yang family how to divide the benefits hidden in Yang Kai's body. Even if they could not capture Yang Kai and instead forced him to return to the Yang family, they could accept this result. As the old man said, the 7 great families had accompanied the Yang family to play such a good show, and many people had died. The Yang family had to do something, otherwise how could the 7 great families give up? Yang Li Ting's appearance today was precisely because of this consideration. On one hand he was accompanying the others to pressure Yang Kai, and on the other hand he was secretly ensuring that Yang Kai would not fall into the hands of others. In order to maximize the benefits of the Yang family. Listening to the old man's words, Yang Kai secretly nodded, a sense of sadness growing in his heart. This was the current situation of the great families. In front of the interests of the entire family, the members of the family could not resist at all. Facing the demands of the family, they had to submit 100%. The old man continued, That was our original goal, but this old man has discovered something even more interesting. The secret to instantly breaking through to the above immortal ascension boundary? Yang Kai grinned. He wasn't a fool and could naturally guess what the other party was coveting. Tonight, Meng Wuya and the old demon each used a different divine technique to raise their strength to the above immortal ascension boundary. This was a huge blow to anyone. Putting Meng Wuya aside for now, it was very likely that he had been at this level all along, but had sealed his own cultivation. Just now he had undone the seal and recovered his strength. This was a method that no one else could imitate or learn from. Instead, it was the old demon. Yang Kai had indeed used a secret technique to reach the above immortal ascension boundary. If he could obtain this secret technique, it would be more valuable than anything else. Each of the 8 great families had at least a dozen or so peak immortal ascension boundary masters. In times of crisis, he could summon a dozen or 20 above immortal ascension boundary masters. What did this mean? If the Yi family obtained this secret, trampling the Yang family under their feet wouldn't be a dream. Even if the old demon's methods were somewhat cruel and bloody, so what? Under the temptation of such benefits, everything was a piece of cake. Whether it was a black cat or a white cat, as long as it could catch a mouse, it was a good cat. Interesting, at this time you don't care about some evil secret art? Yang Kai looked at the other party sarcastically. I just have the potential to become a demon lord, yet you're all working together to target me. On the other hand, you're coveting old demon's methods. What's wrong? Do you also want to cultivate some kind of evil secret art? No matter what attribute it is, as long as it's useful to the family, it's a good thing. The old man coldly snorted, not showing the slightest trace of embarrassment. Yang Kai was surprised. So you know? I thought you didn't know. Putting on such a dignified posture and insisting on suppressing and destroying me, don't you think it's ridiculous? The old man slowly shook his head. Our standpoints are different, so our considerations are different. Suppressing and destroying you is imperative, but as for the reason, it can only be said that you are too weak. If you were in my position, no one would dare to point fingers at you. I understand, Yang Kai nodded gently, his expression dignified. In the end, it's because I have no power or influence. That's right, even if you are the Yang family's young lord in front of us, you are just a little brat. Many thanks for your guidance. I will work hard enough to make everyone look up to me and obey my will. Yang Kai sneered meaningfully, his eyes filled with a raging flame. You have no chance. The old man shook his head indifferently, his expression indifferent as he said, if you hadn't discovered this old master's methods, you might have had a chance, but even if you did, do you think this old master would let you leave here safely? You want to kill me? Yang Kai stared at the other party, not showing the slightest fear, instead a bit eager to try. If I don't kill you, how can I obtain the secret art from that old demon? For this old master, controlling you is far more valuable than killing you. The old man said lightly, as if he was talking about something trivial, don't even think about leaving here to spread the news. Since this old master has made a move, he will seal off your knowledge sea. Who said I wanted to leave here? Yang Kai grinned, following his words, his entire knowledge sea gradually surged. Old dog, have you forgotten that this is my knowledge sea? Here I am the master. As soon as his voice fell, countless pillars of water rushed out from his knowledge sea, like flood dragons, and rushed towards the old man's soul avatar from all directions. The old man stood in place calmly, facing this destructive attack, seemingly not caring at all, only waving his hand as the water pillars rushed towards him. With a loud crash, all the water pillars were blocked, leaving him unscathed. Your spiritual energy is indeed powerful, but compared to this old master, there is still a gap. Didn't this old master tell you this before? The old man looked at Yang Kai sarcastically. Yang Kai's brow wrinkled slightly as he discovered that at some point, this old man had poured all of his spiritual energy into his knowledge sea. With all of his spiritual energy gathered here, this old man's body would be powerless to resist. But now that the above immortal ascension boundary masters were fighting, everyone's eyes and attention were focused on this battle, so no one would notice this old man's abnormality. In other words, if Yang Kai didn't deal with this old man here, he may really be controlled by this old man. Waving his hands, the birds flying through the sky and the fish swimming in the sea suddenly transformed into a sharp wave of energy that shot towards the old man. The old man's expression also became slightly dignified. Although his spiritual energy was greater than Yang Kai's, it wasn't enough to ignore him. The spiritual energy attack of this immortal ascension boundary second stage master was extraordinary, so he didn't dare take it lightly. Invisible energy was released from Yang Kai's soul avatar, innumerable strands of energy that seemed to be everywhere as it rushed towards the aggressive birds and fishes. At this point, whether it was the old man or Yang Kai, neither of them held back. Inside the knowledge sea, this battle was earth-shattering. Fish after fish turned into fluorescent light and birds fell one after another. Yang Kai's attacks were ineffective, and the old man's expression became more and more dignified. The energy released from his soul avatar was constantly being consumed. Yang Kai's strength had exceeded his expectations. Shio. From the five-colored island, the small sword-shaped soul-type artifact shot out, leaving behind a trail of light as it shot towards the old man. The old man's expression changed, no longer able to remain calm. Although this soul-type artifact was only heaven-grade top rank, its function was to attack one's spiritual energy. It was the greatest nemesis of this old man's soul. Yang Kai using it to attack was naturally not something the old man could ignore. Streams of spiritual energy visible to the naked eye burst out from the old man's body, instantly weaving into an indestructible net in front of him that shot towards the small sword. This net was extremely tough, so when the small sword hit it, it was unable to break through and instead seemed to sink into a quagmire, greatly reducing its speed. Seeing this, the old man coldly shouted, "Young family little brat, surrender yourself, this old master has already given you a lot of face, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't boast." Yang Kai coldly snorted, "If you really had a way to deal with me, why bother wasting time?" The old man's expression became cold. Although he didn't want to admit Yang Kai's statement, it was also a fact. Before sneaking into Yang Kai's knowledge sea, he hadn't expected the other party's spiritual energy to be so strong, causing his plan to fail. As he spoke, Yang Kai waved his hand and the small sword that had been bound by the net flew over. Yang Kai grabbed it and poured his spiritual energy into it, causing the several-inch-long sword to suddenly burst into a dazzling light. Holding this small sword, Yang Kai grinned and rushed straight towards the old man. Before he even arrived, he slashed out with the sword, sending out a several-dozen-meter-long sword wave towards the old man. The old man's expression changed as he coldly shouted, "You're crazy." In the previous confrontation between the two of them, they had both used their own spiritual energy to collide with each other, so even if there was some wear and tear, there wouldn't be any damage. However, if one soul avatar was damaged, it would be a serious blow. If it was light, one would become an idiot and their soul would be greatly damaged, while if it was heavy, one would die on the spot, beyond redemption. So when he saw Yang Kai's soul avatar rushing towards him with a small sword, the old man was taken aback. Who would use such a method to fight? Waving his hands one after another, the old man arranged several layers of defense, but all of them were quickly broken through by Yang Kai's soul-type artifact. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were within reach. Although he had lived for many years, the old man still had an instinctive fear of death. Before the battle had even begun, his courage had already waned, so the old man hurriedly retreated and opened up some distance between him and Yang Kai. "Old dog, do you only know how to run?" Yang Kai chased after the old man, his mouth not idle as he taunted him. This was Yang Kai's knowledge sea, so Yang Kai had an absolute advantage here. From the sea below, one divine sense attack after another rushed out and blocked the old man's path. How could he have the energy to answer? "Didn't you just say you wanted to control me?" "Say it again," Yang Kai laughed, becoming more and more unrestrained, causing the old man's face to go pale. Chapter 554. Inside Yang Kai's knowledge sea, Yang Kai and the old man's soul avatar were chasing after each other as they circled around the five-colored island. The old man didn't want to have a direct collision with Yang Kai's soul avatar in order to avoid any accidents. Yang Kai, on the other hand, was still young and full of vigor, not fearing death, chasing after the old man relentlessly, seemingly determined to kill him. In terms of momentum alone, the old man was at a disadvantage. But in fact, Yang Kai couldn't do anything to his opponent. Although this was his knowledge sea and he was the master here, the old man had cultivated and used his spiritual energy nearly 100 years earlier than Yang Kai. Such a long period of accumulation was more than enough for him to escape Yang Kai's pursuit unscathed. While fleeing, the old man even had the leisure to observe the five-colored island. The more he observed it, the more difficult it was for him to suppress the desire in his heart. He didn't know what this five-colored island was, but he could feel a sense of warmth coming from it. When his soul avatar was near the island, his spiritual energy seemed to have increased significantly, allowing him to quickly restore the lost portion of his spiritual energy. In an instant, The old man understood that this magical five-colored island was a supreme treasure that could nourish one's soul. This also explained why Yang Kai could possess such a powerful spiritual energy when he was just an immortal ascension boundary second-stage cultivator. The root of all of this was this five-colored island. The value of this island may be greater than the value of the old demon's divine technique. Considering all this, the old man's breathing quickened slightly. His divine sense had silently infiltrated Yang Kai's knowledge sea in order to find an opportunity to take control of him in one fell swoop. Although there had been an accident, he had now discovered another treasure of great value. This time the price he paid was worth it. Even if his soul avatar was damaged, he had to capture this little brat. The secrets and wealth hidden on this boy were enough to make anyone's eyes go red with envy. The old man secretly made up his mind. Seemingly aware of the change in the old man's thoughts, Yang Kai's face also became gloomy. He had 3 great secrets that he would never let anyone he didn't trust know about. The first was the wordless black book, a secret no one knew about until now. The second was the 5-colored soul-warming lotus, only the old demon knew of its existence. The third was the myriad drug liquid. Now that the second secret was right in front of the other party, and the other party was also very interested in the soul-warming lotus, Yang Kai immediately wanted to kill him. No matter what, he could not allow the other party to leave his knowledge sea safely and reveal this secret. With this thought, his entire sea of consciousness shook. Countless attacks covered the sky and covered the earth, like a swarm of locusts, attacking the old man from all directions. The old man's footsteps suddenly came to a halt as he turned around and looked at Yang Kai quietly, sneering, "Young family brat, you're still too inexperienced." Yang Kai's heart skipped a beat as he felt a sense of crisis. The old man laughed. "Do you think this old man is being chased by you? Aha, this old man was secretly arranging things, but you didn't notice at all. You really are young and full of vigor." As he spoke, green rays of light suddenly appeared in the air. These rays of light weaved into a huge curtain, enveloping the entire 5-colored treasure island. In an instant, the connection between Yang Kai and his knowledge sea was cut off. Yang Kai's complexion changed greatly, and without the slightest hesitation, he gripped his small sword artifact and rushed towards the green curtain, intending to destroy it. Yang Kai nodded lightly, his expression indifferent. Once again he was horrified by the destructive power of that single golden pupil. With a single blow, it had destroyed an above immortal ascension boundary master's soul avatar. The Yi family old man's soul avatar carried all of his thoughts, so if it was destroyed like that, how could his physical body possibly survive? What was the origin of this solitary golden eye? The atmosphere suddenly became dignified. Whether it was the 8 great families above immortal ascension boundary masters, Meng Wuya, Ling Tai Su, or any of the others, all of them frowned, not understanding what was going on. Old Demon snickered, "Don't you dare assume that we were the ones behind this. When the incident happened, all 3 of us were high up in the sky, so there was no way we would have had the opportunity to do so." The fall of an immortal ascension boundary master was a huge loss for these forces. Every family was somewhat dejected and sad. Inside the room, Yang Kai, Meng Wuya, Ling Tai Su, and the old demon gathered together to discuss some matters. "Little Yang Kai, what do you plan to do next?" Meng Wuya, who had restored his peak immortal ascension boundary cultivation, asked in a deep voice. After last night's battle, he hadn't suffered much damage. On the contrary, the old demon seemed to be a little weak today. "Let's leave this place." Yang Kai smiled bitterly and shook his head. "There's no place for me here." Meng Wuya nodded lightly. "You should have left long ago. Since you didn't want to be the Yang family's patriarch, you shouldn't have participated in the inheritance war and meddled in these muddy waters." Yang Kai's expression became gloomy. "My original intention in participating in the inheritance war was to restore the sect's name. But now it seems that with my position I can't do that." Ling Tai Su comforted him. "Don't feel guilty, the sect's name is still the same, there's no need to care about the opinions of the world." Yang Kai nodded gently. "I know." The old demon grinned meaningfully. "Leaving is also good from now on, with old servants supporting young master. Young master's future achievements will certainly be limitless, hundreds of times better than being the Yang family's patriarch. When young master's strength reaches a certain height in the future, I'm afraid even the central capital's 8 great families will come to lick young master's toes." What you said is too disgusting. Yang Kai glared at him. Meng Wuya shook his head and said, although what he said is disgusting, this is the best way for your future. Moreover, we all feel that with your aptitude and potential, you can achieve this step. You are more suited to wandering and cultivating on your own, not being bound by the sect or family. The sect and family are both shackles placed on you. If you don't break them, your future achievements will be limited. Yang Kai was stunned. Looking at the three people in front of him, he found that they were all looking at him with eyes that seemed to believe in him very much. His heart suddenly moved and he smiled, then I will work hard to live up to your expectations. That's right. Ling Tai Su smiled, you don't need to worry about the sect as long as this old master is alive, he will protect the sect. As for the family, you don't need to worry about the safety of your parents. Although the Yang family is domineering and unfair to you, they won't do anything to harm your parents. I naturally understand that, Yang Kai gently sighed. Young master, when do you plan to leave? Old demon asked. As soon as possible. Yang Kai's expression was somewhat sad. After so long of hard work he had to give up now, feeling somewhat regretful. This old master will need a few days to recover, and so will this demon. Meng Wuya lightly coughed. Take advantage of these few days to talk to those people in your house, after all, they have done a lot for you. Yang Kai nodded slightly before suddenly asking curiously, Treasurer Meng, how did you and old demon break through to the above immortal ascension boundary? The shocking method they had used last night had aroused everyone's curiosity, and Yang Kai was naturally no exception. Hearing this, Meng Wuya and old demon looked at each other and laughed. If it's convenient, I'd like to hear about it. Ling Tai Su showed an interested look. Meng Wuya pondered for a moment before nodding lightly, waving his hand and wrapping the room with an invisible energy barrier, isolating it from the outside world. This old master knows that my and this demon's methods have definitely attracted the attention of many people, Meng Wuya snorted lightly. But these people are too short-sighted, thinking that as long as they know this old master and this demon's methods, they can replicate our actions. That's a bit ridiculous. Yang Kai was surprised, even if they know the methods? Old demon nodded heavily, that's not possible. They probably also realize that old Meng's methods aren't something they can copy. As for old servant's methods, even if they can, they won't be able to reach the above immortal ascension boundary. What? Because the above immortal ascension boundary is a completely different realm from the past. If one hasn't reached it before, they won't be able to do so. Old demon said a few words but found that he hadn't gotten to the point, so he couldn't help saying awkwardly, Old Meng, please explain. Meng Wuya chuckled. To put it simply, old demon was once an above immortal ascension boundary master, but he lost his own body and seized another's body. Now, his cultivation is only at the peak immortal ascension boundary, but he has the foundation of an above immortal ascension boundary master and understands its mysteries, so by using the demon spectre saint technique, he was able to climb to this realm. Yang Kai suddenly understood. The peak immortal ascension boundary masters of the 8 great families had all pursued their entire lives in order to reach a higher realm, but since they couldn't break through the shackles of this realm, they naturally didn't understand the mysteries of this realm. So what if they knew the demon spectre saint technique? They still couldn't break through to the above immortal ascension boundary. As for this old master, haha. Meng Wuya laughed, my cultivation was sealed, but last night I unsealed one of those seals. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly. Even though he had already guessed this, when his guess was confirmed by Meng Wuya, Yang Kai still couldn't believe it. Meng Wuya's strength was sealed. Did he seal it himself? Or was it sealed by someone else? If it was him who sealed it, what was the reason? If it was someone else who sealed it, then who had such a high level of skill? No wonder Treasurer Meng had always been shrouded in mystery and had always been reluctant to participate in the inheritance war. It turned out this was the reason. All the top masters of the above immortal ascension boundary were proud of their status, so how could they bully others in the inheritance war? However, whether it is this old master or this old demon, although we use different methods to break through to the above immortal ascension boundary, both of us have suffered some damage. You've seen this old demon's appearance now. So if you want to leave, you should wait until we've recovered. No one knew whether the 8 great families would allow Yang Kai to leave, so in order to ensure nothing went wrong, Meng Wuya and the old demon had to maintain their peak condition. Waiting a few days won't be a problem. I guess the 8 great families will be busy dealing with the death of the Yi family's master. Yang Kai grinned, but one day you'll have to tell me more about the mysteries of the above immortal ascension boundary. Naturally, with old servant by young master's side, you'll naturally understand. The old demon replied. After thinking about it, Yang Kai took out some myriad drug cream and handed it to Meng Wuya and the old demon. This thing should be helpful to your recovery. Ling Tai Su's eyes lit up. Is it that thing? Yang Kai nodded. What made you so excited? Meng Wuya glanced at Ling Tai Su curiously. Brother Meng, I relied on this thing to break through to the above immortal ascension boundary. Ling Tai Su said faintly. Meng Wuya couldn't help paling, quickly releasing his divine sense to probe the myriad drug cream, a long time later exclaiming, there's actually such a high-grade thing here? Was Li Yuan-chun carefully chose his words and hesitated for a moment before asking, Dare I ask young Master Yang, what are the conditions for you to return these things to us? That depends on what you are willing to pay. Yang Kai slowly shook his head, looking like he was sitting on the ground and raising the price. He really didn't care about the things he obtained from Hidden Island. He could even give up the Azura sword and the 1,000-blossoming blood begonia. With the improvement of his strength, these things were no longer of much value to him, but it was impossible for him to give them away for free. He wasn't a hypocrite. If he wanted these things, he needed to show some sincerity. Especially now, with so many things bothering him and the endless Sea Islands forces coming here at this time, it just so happened that Yang Kai's gun was pointed at them. This. Li Yuan-chun suddenly felt awkward. They hadn't brought any treasures or valuables with them this time, so Yang Kai's request naturally made them feel a little helpless. Ling Tai-su's expression became dignified as he and Li Yuan-chun acted at the same time, a mysterious and tyrannical power erupting from their bodies and blocking the corrosive poisonous gas. Oh, not bad. The Poison King stared at Ling Tai-su and Li Yuan-chun, seemingly not having expected their means to be so good. The profound Ghost King's pair of eyes flashed with a faint green light as he stared towards the direction Tu Feng fled, only letting out a light snort, not intending to pursue, instead joining forces with the Poison King to fight Ling Tai Su and Li Yuanchun. Ling Tai Su's expression was indifferent, although he was not willing to fight with such a cruel enemy. Even so, when it was time to act, he didn't act carelessly. On the other hand, Li Yuanchun was feeling quite depressed. In the Endless Sea Islands he was an ancestor. In the Endless Sea Islands, there was only one super force, Supreme Solitary Sect, and this force only had 3 above Immortal Ascension boundary masters. Li Yuanchun's status was obvious. The Endless Sea Islands. The various sects, who wouldn't be polite and respectful when they saw him. This time, leading a team to War City to ask Yang Kai for the hallowed treasure that had been lost hundreds of years ago, it was clear how much importance the Endless Sea Islands' great forces attached to this matter. Yang Kai hadn't expected that just after arriving in War City, he would be involved in this kind of dispute. He really didn't care about offending the 8 great families, nor did he care about offending the ash-gray cloud evil land, but before he could get his hands on those treasures, he had to help them fight. This was not what Li Yuanchun wanted to see. Especially when fighting against masters like the annihilating Poison King and the profound Ghost King, it was really a thankless task. When he returned this time, no matter what, he had to take back those treasures from the Yang family boy and then take his people and flee. Li Yuanchun secretly made up his mind as he fought. The Poison King and Ghost King were blocked by Ling Tai Su and Li Yuanchun, so Yang Kai took some time to look around and see the situation. Seeing this, he couldn't help feeling cold. Although the 700 to 800 people were all enemies, after seeing this scene, all grievances and enmity no longer mattered. Because these 700 to 800 people had been completely wiped out. The ground was littered with pools of blood, broken limbs and chunks of flesh. All over the ground. From beginning to end, in just the time it would take to drink a cup of tea, the masters from the 7 great families had almost been completely annihilated by the 2 great evil kings. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a bit unreal. Even if these 2 great evil kings had extraordinary means and secret arts, how could they have been defeated so thoroughly? Looking carefully, Yang Kai's expression became cold. Because he found that many people had scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing in the direction of the central capital. These people were the strongest of the 700 to 800 people. The Ghost King and Poison King were indeed powerful, but among these 700 to 800 people, there were also many masters. However, under the attacks of the Ghost King and Poison King, these masters not only did not join forces to fight back, but instead chose to flee for their lives. Those who could not escape naturally died here. Especially the masters from the Chiu family, Hua family and Lu family, because Chiu Yimeng, Hua Xing, and Lu Qingyao were not here, they didn't need to pay too much. On the contrary, the Yi family, Kong family and Gao family's cultivator had suffered heavy casualties. Because they had to protect their masters, they could not easily retreat. After Gao Rangfeng's death, those from the Gao family who were still alive no longer dared to fight and hurriedly retreated. The Force King shouted, a look of disbelief on his face as he turned to Lightning Flash Shadow King. Why did you bring me back? If this father went in, he could have killed all those people. Lightning Flash Shadow King shook his head indifferently. You can't kill them. If you go in, you'll die. Since the other party had done this, he was definitely confident. All 4 evil kings could see this, but the Force King was stubborn, so this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hearing him say so, the Force King didn't waste any more time, curling his lips as he said, this tortoise's shell is really hard, this father has no other choice. Brute force alone was not enough to crush it. Let's try. The Poison King and Ghost King smiled coldly and at the same time used their own methods, filling the air with a poisonous fog and the serene soul's face, covering Yang Kai's mansion in an instant. The people hiding in the barrier looked at the dark green poisonous fog that filled the sky and heard the cries of ghosts and wolves. Everyone was moved. However, the poisonous fog and the serene soul's face were all blocked by the barrier, so no matter how hard the Ghost King and Poison King tried, they couldn't find the slightest gap. After a while, the Poison King and Ghost King stopped, glancing at each other before slowly shaking their heads. There was nothing they could do. After muttering to himself for a while, the Ghost King said, "Master will be here soon, we shouldn't delay here. They are hiding inside and don't dare come out, there will be a time to deal with them. Let's first clean up the rest of the trash." Good. The Poison King nodded. Once Master arrives, this barrier will definitely be broken. The 5 evil kings looked at each other before flashing out at the same time, disappearing from sight. Even the giant spider mother followed the Thunderbolt Beast King to fight. It was only after they left that the people in the residence were finally able to relax their hearts. Yang Kai glanced over at Meng Wuya and asked, "Treasurer Meng, can this barrier stop the Demon Lord?" Meng Wuya proudly replied, "No one can break this old master's heavenly palace. What does the Demon Lord count for?" "Heavenly palace?" Ling Tai Su raised his brow. "Is that the name of an artifact?" "It's quite appropriate, haha, no wonder you were so confident, it turns out you had such an artifact." With the protection of this heavenly palace, the people hiding inside were extremely safe. "How long can this barrier last?" Yang Kai asked worriedly. "There's no limit." Yang Kai was startled, only now realizing how powerful this heavenly palace was. However, even if it was safe to hide inside, Yang Kai's face still showed a trace of worry. It was impossible for him to hide here forever. Glancing in the direction of the central capital, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a little worried. The news of the Ash-Gray Cloud Evil Land's invasion should already be known to the central capital, but Yang Kai didn't know how they would resist or what the result would be if the two sides really fought. Although his father and mother's current strength wasn't bad, compared to those evil kings, they were still heaven and earth apart. War City had been destroyed and its people had been plunged into misery and suffering. After the 5 great evil kings led a large number of monster beasts to War City, within an hour, besides Yang Kai's mansion, there was no one left alive in War City. Even the cultivator who had escaped before had been hunted down by the 5 great evil kings and the monster beast. Only a small number of masters had safely escaped back to the central capital. After spying on this news, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling somewhat relieved. Fortunately, Meng Wuya's heavenly palace was protecting them. If it wasn't for Meng Wuya, whether it was leaving with his people or staying in War City, his cultivator would have suffered heavy losses. When Yang Bai said this, he didn't show the slightest trace of guilt, causing everyone from High Heaven Pavilion to feel disgruntled. Ling Tai Su coldly snorted, his eyes cold. In the past, he had great expectations for this second disciple of his, secretly believing that he and his eldest brother would be able to achieve great heights, so he had carefully cultivated him. But now he was extremely disappointed with this second disciple. "You're that martial nephew, right?" Yang Bai suddenly turned to Yang Kai in the crowd, his eyes shining brightly. "Speaking of which, this should be the first time we've met." "Martial uncle, I've heard so much about you." Yang Kai grinned at him. Yang Bai nodded gently. "How is your father?" Yang Kai grinned meaningfully, his eyes as cold as a blade. "Thanks to martial uncle's blessing, my father is safe and sound." "That's good." Yang Bai took a deep breath and no longer said anything. All that needed to be said had been said, and all that needed to be said had been said, so there was nothing he could do about the other party hiding inside the barrier. Continuing to be entangled here would only be a waste of time. "Qing Luo, you stay here and watch over them, the rest of you come with me." Yang Bai ordered faintly before immediately saluting Ling Tai Su and leading the other 5 evil kings away. Only Shan Qing Luo was left behind, standing in place with a strange expression on her face. She didn't know if Yang Bai had arranged for her to stay behind to monitor this place for some reason. Soon, gathered in War City, the cultivator and monster beast from the Ash-Gray Cloud Evil Land gathered together and under the leadership of Yang Bai and the 5 great evil kings, rushed towards the central capital. Obviously, they wanted to take advantage of the fact that the central capital's defenses were not good to launch a fierce surprise attack. After these people really left, Shan Qing Luo glanced over at Yang Kai and immediately began walking towards Yang Kai's house. Bai Luo suddenly appeared out of nowhere and followed closely behind Shan Qing Luo. Everyone in Yang Kai's house, whether they were men, women, old or young, all stared at the world-famous beguiling demon queen. Even if she wasn't using any kind of seductive technique, the seductive aura she exuded was not something ordinary people could bear. Many young men wore dull expressions as if their souls had been sucked away. The women were secretly comparing themselves with her, but no matter who they were, they couldn't help feeling a subtle sense of inferiority. In this house, perhaps only Su Yan's seductive charms could compare to Shanqing Luo. Perhaps Xianing Chang could also compare, but no one had ever seen her true face, not even Yang Kai, so naturally there was no way to compare. However, in terms of seductive charms, no woman could compare to Shanqing Luo. This seductive beauty. The Liu family members' eyes lit up, recalling the 9 luxurious lineup they had just witnessed, all of them feeling deeply shocked and expectant. This young Master Yang isn't colluding with evil demons like the rumors say. As far as I know, all of his allies in the inheritance war have obtained great benefits. If my Liu family can hitch a ride with him, regardless of whether we can obtain any benefits, at the very least, we won't be used as the vanguard and needlessly sacrificed. That's all I hope. The Liu family has cultivated you. It wasn't easy. Elder is wise. Lu Mu finally understood why Lu Si had been waiting in Yang Kai's house all this time. It turned out he had such concerns. Indeed, if Yang Kai could lead them to the central capital, their future would not be as hazy as it was now. During the inheritance war, he had repeatedly created miracles, so all of them had heard of these rumors. But this young Master Yang, will he go to the central capital? Someone asked. It'll be difficult. Lu Si shook his head sadly. The 8 great families had treated Yang Kai too unfairly. It was likely they had already disheartened him. Otherwise, with so many masters gathered around him, why hadn't he made a move yet? He himself had said that the life or death of the 8 great families and the central capital had nothing to do with him. If he still had any attachment to the central capital and the 8 great families, he wouldn't have just sat back and watched. Let's wait a few days. If it really doesn't work out, my Lu family can only rush to the central capital to help. Lu Si smiled bitterly, his expression helpless. As he was speaking, a person suddenly walked out of Yang Kai's house. Lu Si stared at this person and couldn't help feeling shocked, putting on a warm smile on his face and cupping his fists. Young Master Yang. Yang Kai had actually come out. This was something Lu Si hadn't expected. Everyone from the Lu family also hurriedly saluted and respectfully greeted him. After listening to Lu Si's words, all of them had already regarded Yang Kai as their life-saving straw, so how could they dare disrespect him? Yang Kai glanced over at them and hesitated for a moment before saying, Elder Lu, speaking of which, I have some friendship with the Lu family, and you are a senior among seniors. For you to stand outside like this, I feel a little apologetic. It's fine, it's fine. Lu Si quickly waved his hand, indicating that it was fine. Would you like to come in and sit down? Yang Kai tilted his head. Lu Si's eyes lit up. Although he didn't quite understand why Yang Kai's attitude had changed so much, he was still overjoyed and nodded. Very good, then this old man will disturb you. Please. Lu Si had invited Yang Kai into the house to discuss the matter of rushing to the central capital, but after entering, Chiu Yimeng took over the Lu family's hospitality while Yang Kai was nowhere to be seen. Lu Si was confused, wondering what Yang Kai was up to. He had asked Chiu Yimeng several times, but the Chiu family's first young lady didn't know anything, so he couldn't help feeling a little uneasy. Inside Meng Wuya's room, Yang Kai told his thoughts to Meng Wuya, Old Demon and Ling Tai Su. Young master, you want to go to the central capital? Old Demon was surprised, not understanding why Yang Kai would suddenly have such an idea. For the past 6 months, everyone in the mansion had been working hard to improve their strength, and everyone had achieved great results, but if they were to be drawn into the central capital's battlefield, who knew how many of them would die? And I want to go to the central capital. Yang Kai nodded firmly. Now that he knew how to use the solitary golden eye and the great benefits it could bring him, Yang Kai naturally had to look for an opportunity. Staying in War City was indeed safe, but his strength would also rise slowly. The central capital was different. However, there is one thing you are not wrong about, I have indeed colluded with evil demons. The 8 patriarchs all paled as they stared at him in horror. Yang Kai pointed to the beguiling demon queen and smiled, Shanqing Luo and I are old acquaintances. When I was trapped in the ash-gray cloud evil land, she took care of me many times. Kindness must be repaid with kindness, and hatred must be repaid with vengeance. So, if anyone dares to harm her, don't blame me for not showing mercy. The beguiling master's face filled with happiness as a sense of pride rose in her heart. This was the man she had chosen, using such a strong posture to suppress the patriarchs of the 8 great families, making them not dare to show the slightest resistance. Shanqing Luo thought to herself, her beautiful eyes blurring. This should just be nephew and this beguiling demon queen's personal friendship. It can't be considered collusion. Nephew is a person who distinguishes between public and private interests, this we all know. Kang Rui quickly said, taking the initiative to defend Yang Kai. Yang Yinghao sighed softly and said, Yang Kai, about what happened half a year ago, my Yang family and the central capital's 8 great families were the ones who wronged you. Now that is all in the past. After we get through this crisis, my 8 great families will definitely compensate you. We can satisfy all of your requests. Great uncle. Yang Kai hesitated for a moment before saying with a straight face, there's no need to mention what happened half a year ago, I don't care too much about it. If I want something, I will take it myself, there is no need for the 8 great families to compensate me. Yang Yinghao nodded gently, knowing that Yang Kai's words showed that he was truly bitterly disappointed with the 8 great families. But at the same time, it also showed that he really didn't care about what happened half a year ago. After all, those who had tried to deal with him at that time were basically all dead. What business do all these uncles have here today? Yang Kai asked. The 8 people exchanged glances before Yang Yinghao lightly coughed and said, it's not a big deal, since the beguiling demon queen has come to see you, she must have something to discuss with you. She can speak first. Yang Kai just smiled and didn't insist. He knew that these people were worried about Shanqing Luo's purpose for coming here and wanted to wait and see. Turning his head to look at Shanqing Luo, the latter pursed her lips and smiled, not bothering to hide anything from these 8 people, bluntly saying, Yang Kai, I came here this time on the orders of the demon lord to act as a mediator. Yang Yinghao and the others' expressions suddenly became cold. Although they had already guessed this when Shanqing Luo actually said it, they couldn't help feeling worried, all of them perking up their ears and listening carefully. The demon lord said that he hopes you can join forces with him to destroy the 8 great families and control the world. Shanqing Luo said bluntly, as if she didn't put the 8 patriarchs in her eyes at all. Yang Kai raised his brow and showed a look of interest. What are the benefits? After this matter is settled, this world will belong to you. Yang Kai was stunned. What does the demon lord want? He only wants to destroy the 8 great families. Shanqing Luo replied with a frown, her tone somewhat strange. Obviously, she didn't think that the demon lord had spent so much effort to lead a large number of masters to invade the central capital just for this purpose. Why would he work so hard for something that didn't benefit him in the slightest? The demon lord also said. Shanqing Luo's cheeks flushed red as she glanced over at Yang Kai. If you can agree with him, he will give you the beguiling demon queen as a thank you gift. Ah. Yang Kai laughed as he stared at Shanqing Luo with interest. Aren't you mine to begin with? What qualifications does he have to give you? I think so too. Shanqing Luo smiled and nodded. The faces of the 8 great families' patriarchs all became strange. How could the relationship between Yang Kai and this world-famous beguiling demon queen be so ambiguous and intimate? Then do you agree or not? Shanqing Luo asked. I agree, such a good thing, why wouldn't I agree? Yang Kai nodded seriously. Yang Yinghao and the other patriarchs all stared at Yang Kai with great vigilance, none of them having expected him to be so easily persuaded by Shanqing Luo. Just as they were about to ask, Yang Kai's expression suddenly became cold and said, But I have a condition. Shanqing Luo nodded. Speak, I'm only responsible for passing on your message. Go back and tell the demon lord that I want his head. My Grand Master is very interested in his head, as long as he can accomplish this, I will join forces with him. Shanqing Luo's expression remained indifferent as she nodded gently. Then I'll go back and pass on your message to him, but I don't think he will agree. Saying so, she stood up and left with Bai Luo, as if she really was just passing on the demon lord's message and not trying to persuade Yang Kai at all. After she left, the patriarchs of the 8 great families breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that it was absolutely impossible for Yang Kai to stand on the same side as the demon lord. The demon lord was from High Heaven Pavilion and was Yang Kai's martial uncle. High Heaven Pavilion sect master, Ling Tai Su, wanted to take demon lord Yang Bai's life. With this kind of relationship, Yang Kai and Yang Bai could only be enemies, never friends. Considering all this, the 8 patriarchs all secretly relaxed. What business do several uncles have with nephew? Yang Kai turned to look at the 8 patriarchs. Yang Yinghao hesitated for a moment before replying, We hope you can return to the Yang family, after all, You are still a direct descendant of the Yang family. Currently, the central capital was divided into 3 factions. Yang Kai's mansion was like a thorn in the throat between the 8 great families and the ash-gray cloud evil land, so naturally the central capital hoped that Yang Kai could draw closer to them. This past month, Yang Kai's mansion had received a lot of elite masters who had come to assist the central capital, including 10 transcendents. As long as they could join forces with the 8 great families, it wouldn't be difficult to expel the ash-gray cloud evil land. Great uncle, I won't go back. Yang Kai shook his head. What? Only those with strength have the right to speak. If I go back, do you think I can still talk to you like this? Yang Kai sneered. Once he returned to the Yang family, the forces in his hands would be fully taken over by the 8 great families. Chapter 584. Hearing the meaning behind Yang Yinghao's words, the other 7 also fell into contemplation. Then we'll take our leave. Saying so, Yang Yinghao stood up. The other 7 also left their seats, looking towards Yang Kai with complicated expressions, all of them shaking their heads and sighing before slowly walking out. Meeting with Yang Kai this time had dealt them a heavy blow. Great uncle. Yang Kai suddenly called out, how are my parents? You don't have to worry about 4th brother and his wife. Even if the Yang family is destroyed, I won't let anything happen to them. Yang Kai's expression changed slightly as he solemnly said, many thanks, great uncle. We're family. Yang Yinghao nodded gently. The 8 people left the side hall and in the corridor met Qiu Yimeng and Huixing. It was obvious that these 2 young lords and young ladies from the 8 great families had deliberately been waiting here. Greetings, uncles. Qiu Yimeng politely bowed. Her etiquette and upbringing from a great family was remarkable. On the other hand, Huixing's sloppy expression made Huizheng's eyes burn with anger. In the entire central capital, it was likely that only Xing didn't look like a young lord from a great force. Come here, father has something to say to you. Huizheng shouted at Huixing. Huixing grinned meaningfully and obediently followed Huizheng to the side. On the other side, Qiu Shouqing stared at Qiu Yimeng for a long time before saying, Meng, your vision is much further than mine. Before the start of the Inheritance War, Qiu Yimeng had strongly advocated that the Qiu family form an alliance with Yang Kai, but Qiu Shouqing and Qiu Zirua had chosen the Yang family's 6th brother, Yang Shen. Facts proved that Qiu Yimeng's choice was correct. During the Inheritance War, Yang Kai suddenly rose up, going from nothing to standing above everyone else. In the later stages of the Inheritance War, Qiu Shouqing issued an order to recall Qiu Yimeng and the Qiu Yu Hall, not wanting her to have anything to do with Yang Kai. However, facts also proved that standing firmly on the same side as Yang Kai brought more benefits than the 8 great families joining forces. Nowadays, the central capital is suffering from both internal and external troubles. Qiu Yimeng still remained in Yang Kai's mansion, acting as Yang Kai's right-hand woman. Qiu Shouqing not only couldn't raise any objections, but also secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, Qiu Yimeng had chosen to follow Yang Kai, even going so far as to disobey him. He had gone against his orders. This daughter of his. Indeed, he was able to see further than him. Qiu Shouqing couldn't help but feel the dejection of old age. Father. Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes flashed. This was the first time she had heard Qiu Shouqing praise her so unreservedly. Ever since she was young, no matter how outstanding her performance was, Qiu Shouqing had never praised her. His only goal was to nurture Qiu Zirua into the future successor of the Qiu family. Sometimes, when Qiu Yimeng's performance was too outrageous, Qiu Shouqing would show a look of regret. It was a pity that she was not a man. This time she heard Qiu Shouqing's unstinting praise. Qiu Yimeng suddenly felt a sense of exalted bitterness. Father is old. In the future, the Qiu family will probably need you to take care of it. Qiu Shouqing sighed softly. Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes filled with tears. Biting her lower lip, she said, Father, you're still young. Not young. Qiu Shouqing chuckled and turned to look at the others. They're all old. Kang Rui, Meng Shiping and the others couldn't help curling their lips. On the other side, Huizheng and Huixing, father and son, were whispering to each other, but after a long time, Huizheng let out a heavy sigh. Old master. Chapter 586. Central Capital Yang Family. The head of the 8 great families was located directly south of the central capital, so this time the invasion of the ash-gray cloud evil land had not damaged the Yang family. When Yang Kai returned here again, the entire Yang family had not changed. The only thing that had changed was the Yang family's attitude towards him. As if they knew that Kai Yang was coming back today, the family's guards all straightened their backs and stared intently in front of them, their faces solemn. Just after entering the Yang family, Yang Kai saw a group of people waiting for him, led by Yang Tai, the third brother of the Yang family's younger generation. "Greetings, Patriarch." Yang Tai suddenly shouted, and the group of people behind him also hurriedly saluted. Yang Kai's expression became strange as he quickly stepped forward and asked softly, "Third brother, what's the matter?" "Great uncle asked us to greet you here." Yang Tai also responded softly, "You are now the patriarch of the Yang family, so you should act like one." "Acting patriarch." Yang Kai nodded. "Same." Yang Tai straightened up again, smiled and said loudly, "Patriarch please, the elders have been waiting for you for a long time." Yang Kai nodded gently, adjusted his expression and stepped forward. Behind him, Fourth Master Yang, his wife and old demon followed closely. The faces of the Fourth Master Yang and his wife glowed with pride. Yang Kai had become the patriarch of the Yang family, so as his parents, they were naturally proud. Old demon, on the other hand, was constantly vigilant. He was an old demon, so he was naturally suspicious. He was quite worried that the Yang family had hurriedly summoned Yang Kai back this time for some ulterior purpose. Under the leadership of Yang Tai, Yang Kai and the others soon arrived in front of a large hall. At the front of the hall, 2 rows of people stood quietly. Roughly counting, there were at least 40 of them. These people were all Yang family elders, including Yang Zhen and the elders Yang Kai had met before. The several elders who had once ridiculed Yang Kai couldn't help but feel complicated when they saw him again. They were secretly worried that Yang Kai would cause trouble for them, but Yang Kai turned a blind eye to them and directly walked past them, as if he didn't know them at all. Those people couldn't help but sigh in relief. Yang Yinghao clasped his hands behind his back and stood in front of the hall, exuding a dignified aura, his eyes shining brightly as he stared at the approaching Yang Kai. When Yang Kai arrived, everyone saluted in unison, "Greetings, Patriarch." Yang Kai nodded lightly. Ignoring the discomfort in his heart, he walked straight through the 2 rows of elders with a solemn expression. Arriving at Yang Yinghao's side, Yang Kai cupped his fists and said, "Uncle." "Patriarch." Yang Yinghao smiled, "Please come in." Saying so, he took the lead and led Yang Kai into the hall. The 3 Yang family grand elders beside him stepped forward and stood in front of old demon, the Yang family 4th master, and his wife. "Aha, what's the meaning of this?" Old demon laughed strangely, his aura gradually becoming more dangerous. "Your Excellency, please forgive us, this is my Yang family's most important place. Besides the patriarch, no one can enter. Your Excellency, please wait here." One of the Transcendent Realm Grand Elders said lightly. "That won't do, I have to follow the young master at all times." Old demon slowly shook his head, an expression that said there was no room for discussion. The reason he had come here was to protect Yang Kai's safety, but now someone wanted to separate him from Yang Kai. How could old demon agree? "Old demon, you stay here." Yang Kai turned around and ordered. "Young master." Yang Kai shook his head, indicating that he was fine. "Then young master must be careful." With a wave of his hand, 4 drops of blood suddenly flew out and accurately entered the mouths of the 4 stone sculptures. As if there was an incredible reaction, the 4 stone sculptures suddenly lit up with spirit array lines and an inexplicable energy sprayed out from the mouths of the 4 stone sculptures and quickly gathered in midair. Yang Kai looked up and saw that in the void, a white light suddenly burst out, and as the energy from the 4 stone sculptures poured into it, the light grew brighter and brighter. What you're about to see is the treatment the Yang family patriarch has enjoyed and is also the Yang family's top secret. I asked you before why every Yang family patriarch was able to reach the above immortal ascension boundary. This secret is now right in front of you, so instead of me telling you, it's better for you to experience it for yourself. This is one of the benefits of being the Yang family patriarch. Yang Yinghao looked at the halo in the sky and explained. "Great uncle." Yang Kai hesitated, "Is this appropriate?" "What's not appropriate?" Yang Yinghao raised his brow. "Since it's a benefit if I take it, when big brother or second brother comes here in the future, won't they lose everything?" Yang Kai was a little worried that if he took the benefits he would have to take responsibility. Yang Kai didn't want to be bound to the Yang family for the rest of his life. Yang Yinghao stared at him blankly for a moment before laughing and shaking his head. Your appetite isn't small, you want to take it all? And if you have the ability, you don't need to worry, take as much as you can, but I don't think you can take it all. Don't ask me too much. After you go in, you will know why I said so. Listening to him say this, Yang Kai became more and more puzzled. But remember, once you enter, there will be a certain amount of danger. If you feel something is wrong, quickly withdraw. I know, Yang Kai nodded gently. At that moment, the halo in the sky suddenly stabilized, and the energy shot out from the mouths of the four beasts in the four corners of the hall no longer transmitted, everything returning to normal. When he saw the light in the sky again, Yang Kai's eyes lit up, suddenly feeling that the scene in front of him was somewhat familiar. After thinking about it carefully, he finally remembered. The ball of light in the sky now was basically the same as the one he saw in the Seal Temple. In the Seal Temple, the transcendents of the 8 great families gathered their spiritual energy and opened up a will space that only they could enter to communicate. In that will space, they exchanged martial skills and comprehended the heavenly way and martial Tao. This way they could use their full strength without worrying about damaging the surrounding buildings or causing unnecessary casualties. At this moment, the huge ball of light in the Soul Root Temple and the one in the Seal Temple seemed to have originated from the same source. Faintly, Yang Kai somewhat understood what secrets were hidden inside. You can go in, release your divine sense. After listening to Yang Yinghao's words, Yang Kai did not hesitate and immediately released his spiritual energy and poured it into the ball of light. Yang Yinghao turned his head and glanced at him, secretly looking forward to it. When he entered that place, he obtained a lot of benefits. After coming out, his cultivation rapidly improved without any bottlenecks, climbing to the above immortal ascension boundary step by step. Over the years of the Yang family, only Yang Kai's aptitude was the best. Yang Yinghao was also very curious and looking forward to how much benefits he could obtain from that place. Inside that will space was a collection of the precious experiences of countless generations of the Yang family. Inside that huge ball of light, Yang Kai's soul avatar gradually appeared. Chapter 588. At the place where the spiritual energy gathered, the 40 to 50 ancestors of the Yang family all looked at Yang Kai in amazement and were silent. After a while, there was a burst of laughter, boasting shamelessly. Yang Yi also had a strange smile on her face. You mean you want to swallow all of us? Yang Kai nodded. Ha 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 ha. Countless laughter came out, and it seemed that Yang Kai had told a very good joke, which made everyone unable to control themselves. Yang Yi nodded gently. If you really want to do this, we will be willing to be swallowed by you. After all, this is the biggest wish of our soul avatars, but it is impossible for you to do it. Then, seniors, please wait and see. Yang Kai grinned as he released the throbbing sensation that had been suppressing his soul. Since coming here, his soul avatars had involuntarily produced a strong suction force, which was the attractive force of the solitary golden eye in his knowledge sea. However, before he could figure out the mystery here, Yang Kai suppressed this suction force. Now he released the restriction of this suction force, and a huge suction force suddenly swept the entire space. The soul avatars of the 40 to 50 Yang family ancestors were all moved, and before they could react to what was going on, they were all sucked into Yang Kai's knowledge sea. There were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles, and the seawater under his feet was clear. A colorful treasure island stood quietly on the surface of the sea. The sudden change of the scene made the 40 to 50 soul avatars confused for a while. All of them looked around in a daze and none of them reacted. Welcome everyone. Yang Kai's soul avatars gradually appeared, and with his hands behind his back, he greeted everyone warmly like a master returning home. This is your knowledge sea? Yang Yi exclaimed. Yes, this is disciples' knowledge sea. How did you do it? Yang Yi looked at Yang Kai in disbelief. She clearly couldn't figure out what he did, and actually sucked all the soul avatars into his knowledge sea. I didn't do it. It's because of this. Yang Kai pointed at the solitary golden eye floating above the island. Following the direction he pointed, Yang Yi and the others turned to look. They didn't know why, but everyone's heart inexplicably gave birth to a sense of uneasiness, as if the unknown object was their nemesis. What is this? Yang Yi panicked. After the endless flowing time Great Emperor passed by, she clearly could not remember what she had felt before. But now she clearly understood what fear was. Not only her but the other 40 to 50 soul avatars were also the same. Their hands and feet trembled involuntarily, and their expressions became ferocious. They stared at the solitary golden eye like a dormant beast, extremely dangerous. I don't know what it is, but it can cut off the painful shackles that have bound you for countless flowing time, Great Emperor. Yang Kai gently took a breath, looked at Yang Yi and the others and said, I don't know what kind of mood you are in before you die, but since the endless flowing time Great Emperor has distorted your will, then today let's end it here. As he spoke, the closed solitary golden eye slowly opened. Yang Kai didn't talk nonsense and was ready to start directly. The majestic golden pupil made everyone unable to help but feel a sense of fear. Brush, a golden light shot out from the solitary golden eye, and a soul avatar standing in the same place didn't even have time to react, and was hit by the golden light. There was a crackling sound, and the consciousness and thoughts contained in this soul avatar were instantly purified, leaving only a large mass of pure energy. Shio shio shio, golden light shot out one after another, and one soul avatar after another was purified. In the face of the supreme majesty of the golden light, these soul avatars didn't even have the strength to resist. Chapter 599. Toasts were exchanged as everyone toasted each other. Even Shanqing Luo and Bai Luo drank a little. After the beguiling demon queen drank a few glasses of wine, she became even more radiant, her seductive aura so thick that no one dared to look directly into her eyes. After 3 rounds of drinking, the people from the Endless Sea Islands sects finally arrived. Azura sects Yi Ji, Falling Flowers sects Hua Duan Hun, Scarlet Lotus sects Su Qianhao, Cloud Dragon Island, Gemini Island. A large group of people arrived at Ancient Cloud Island. The various sects from the Endless Sea Islands had all sent their best men, almost all of those who had gone to the central capital last time. Gu Feng observed carefully and was surprised to find that when these famous Endless Sea Islands characters faced Yang Kai, their attitude was extremely respectful. Inevitably, he felt a mixture of relief and fear, the last trace of resentment and dissatisfaction in his heart disappearing. These people's status in the Endless Sea Islands was no lower than Gu Feng's, some even stronger than him, but even they were so docile in front of this young Master Yang, how could Gu Feng be qualified to act against them? After a short conversation, Gu Feng learned that the reason Ancient Cloud Island was able to find the Broken Moon transformation art last time was because of Yang Kai, so Gu Feng didn't have anything to say. Finding a sect-hallowed scripture that had been lost for 300 years was tantamount to Yang Kai giving Ancient Cloud Island a huge favor. Supreme Solitary Sect's Supreme Solitary Seal, Falling Flower Sect's Thousand Blossoming Blood Begonia, Azura Sect's Azura Sword, Scarlet Lotus Sect's Sect Master's Jade Pendant, Cloud Dragon Island's Cloud Dragon Ancient Book, Gemini Island's Resurrection Diagram. One by one these treasures were taken out by Yang Kai. Everyone's breathing suddenly became hot as they stared at these hallowed treasures with burning eyes, their expressions filled with excitement. Yang Kai didn't say anything and simply returned these things that belonged to the Endless Sea Islands sects one by one. I've refined the Azura Sword and Thousand Blossoming Blood Begonia, but I haven't used anything else. If you're still worried, feel free to inspect them. Yang Kai said with a smile. Relax, relax. How could we be worried about young Master Yang? Li Yuanchun laughed. Although these things were good, their grades weren't too high, they weren't Yang Kai's worth. Li Yuanchun was well aware of this. The others also expressed that they didn't need to check. They were completely confident in Yang Kai. After receiving these treasures that had been lost for more than 300 years, everyone was deeply grateful and thanked him profusely. Young Master Yang, the Endless Sea Islands great sects have received a great favor from you this time. Just come overseas and let me know. I don't dare to say too much, but I can guarantee that the sects present will come at any time. Li Yuanchun sincerely said. He was not only grateful to Yang Kai for returning the lost treasures of the overseas sects for so many years, but more importantly, he valued Yang Kai's potential. Although there was not much connection between the mainland and overseas, it would be beneficial for them to have a good relationship with Yang Kai. When the time comes, I won't be polite. Yang Kai laughed. That's for the best. Now that this matter is settled, I will take my leave, Yang Kai said and stood up. He was preparing to leave. Li Yuanchun was startled and asked in amazement, Young Master Yang is leaving? This old master wanted to invite young Master Yang to visit Supreme Solitary Sect. I appreciate Senior's kindness, but since that battle, I haven't returned to the central capital. Now I want to go back and have a look around. Now that he knew Yang Kai's identity, Gu Feng wanted to wait for him to leave so he could erase all traces of his existence on Ancient Cloud Island so as to avoid making a fool of himself, but at this critical moment, Zhong Miao jumped out and even dared to call him junior brother. How could this be? Come, take this woman away and send her to the Tsangyan cave. Gu Feng shouted angrily. Zhong Miao's body went soft and she almost fell to the ground. The Tsangyan cave was a place with high temperatures all year round. Even an immortal ascension boundary master would find it difficult to survive in such a place. Once a disciple like her was locked inside, it wouldn't take more than 3 or 5 minutes before they would be roasted to death. She had never expected that an unintentional action of hers would actually cause the island master to fly into such a rage and punish her so severely. The young girl's heart was instantly filled with fear and horror. 2 Ancient Cloud Island disciples obeyed the order and quickly stepped forward. There were even some disciples who looked down on Zhong Miao, all of them showing gloating expressions. If it weren't for Zhong Miao's fortuitous encounter in the past, she would just be an ordinary disciple now, but because Yang Kai had left her a letter, she had made a great contribution and was promoted to elite disciple. This caused many people to feel jealous and envious, thinking that with her aptitude and talent, She wasn't worthy of being an elite disciple. Now that they saw her get into trouble, naturally they were secretly happy. Yang Kai carefully observed the situation and couldn't help feeling a little annoyed. Over the past 6 months, Zhong Miao had given him a very good impression. This little girl was kind and didn't like to cause trouble, so she spent most of her time cultivating in the remote corner where the peacocks were kept. Although she didn't have any aptitude or talent, this kind of hard work was something most people didn't have. Although Yang Kai was annoyed in the end, this was someone else's territory, so naturally he couldn't vent his anger. Hesitating for a moment, Yang Kai said, "Island Master, please wait, she and I are indeed senior sister. She didn't call me wrongly, there is no need to punish her." Gu Feng was slightly embarrassed and cupped his fists. Young Master Yang must be joking. Before, it was ancient Cloud Island who had eyes but failed to see. Now that we are fortunate enough to know young Master Yang's identity, how could we dare treat her as a disciple of ancient Cloud Island? However, since young Master Yang has pleaded, this time we will let her go. Yang Kai nodded with satisfaction. Gu Feng wasn't a fool. Although Yang Kai had only said a few words, he could see that this young Master Yang was actually quite protective of Zhong Miao. "Senior sister, come here." Yang Kai wore a kind smile on his face as he beckoned to Zhong Miao slightly. Zhong Miao's pair of beautiful eyes flashed with crystal-clear tears, a look of lingering fear on her pretty face. Facing Yang Kai's summons, she hesitated for a moment before finally reacting. Obediently walking over, she glanced around, then glancing at one another, shrinking her head and hiding behind Yang Kai as she muttered, "What's going on?" "Senior sister, don't be afraid." Yang Kai comforted her before turning to Li Yuan-chun and saying, "Senior, for the past 6 months, I have been living with this senior sister." Li Yuan-chun's brow rose slightly, his expression somewhat ambiguous. Yang Kai coughed dryly, "It's not what you think. It's just that during the battle half a year ago, I somehow fell into the sea and was rescued by senior sister in the nearby territory. Speaking of which, senior sister has saved my life." Li Yuan-chun was surprised, never having expected that this seemingly ordinary young girl would actually save Yang Kai's life.